Alright, welcome back. And in this video we are going to be tackling Chapter 3 of the Mice and Mystics base game. And this one is entitled The Grapes of Rats, which is a very clever play on the title Grapes of Wrath, of course. And it's a little strange because there's not a ton of grapes involved in this chapter. There are a ton of rats. So I'm not 100% sure what that title is really all about, but here's basically what's going on. In the last chapter, the heroes of our story had rescued the ranger Lily and got her back home, and they were kind of sitting around and, you know, putting their heads together trying to figure out what's going on. And it turns out that they begin to suspect that maybe there's something more going on with Vanestra's plan than maybe they had originally thought. The reason for that is, or the reason for their suspicions would be that, you know, if she was just interested in taking over, she, you know, if that was her only goal, she could have just married the king, because she obviously had him, you know, wrapped around her finger. She could just marry the guy and, you know, quietly had him offed or something like that. But she's kept him alive. She hasn't done that. So they're kind of not sure what her real plan is. She's obviously up to no good, but what exactly is the no good that she's up to? So they decide that they really need to make a foray into the castle and try to get some clues as to what exactly is going on. And of course, having rescued Lily, she volunteers to say, you know, basically it's the least I can do. Now that you saved me, I'll help out. So you now have access to Lily. You therefore have all 6 mice that are available in the game. And this chapter again is just diving into the castle and trying to get those pieces of information. As such, the victory conditions are gain 2 of the 3 clues that are available in the chapter, get to the last tile, and dispose of the minions on that board, and you'll be fine. You win. You also have to worry about, obviously, the time limit and everybody getting captured, but there's really nothing else to this, at least explicitly, in the defeat condition. However, it is possible to go through and fail to get enough clues, which it is stated you need to get 2 of the 3 pieces of information. It is possible to go through one room without the requisite information to trigger the event, so that you cannot get that clue, and then it's possible to then roll into the other option before the final room, and just by virtue of the dice being the dice, not get that clue. Now the final room, pretty much, you know, if you defeat that room like you need to anyway, you're going to get that last clue, but you have to get one of the other 2 somehow. You have to make sure that happens. If you forego one method of getting a clue, then you're just risking the others on the dice. The odds of missing that completely are relatively low, but it is something to bear in mind. So let's take a look at that. And I just want to mention it here because it really is effectively a defeat condition. If you do get at least one of those other 2 clues early in the chapter, there's really no way that you can win. Okay, so you start with the chapter end on page 5, which is again pretty short, but every time you get a clue, you do advance that page. So you could potentially advance it 3 pages before the chapter is done and be on page 8 with that chapter end. So you actually do have a good bit of time in this chapter, even though it doesn't initially look like it. You have to pick 4 mice, and in this one, Maginos has to be one of the 4 mice. Part of that is he is going to be involved in the clue gathering enterprise narratively, and you also wind up trying to rescue his buddy Meeps, and so I guess they wanted him there for that as well. The encounter deck is just your standard cards, your standard 9 cards, just like we've seen thus far. And this map setup is as such. Now notice that the dining hall tile is shown face up here, but of course before you get to it, you're going to need to be in the tunnels below. Actually, you don't need to be in the tunnels below. That's one way to get there. You can also go into the kitchen and then go into it from the kitchen. So I guess that's why this is placed face up. But just make sure that you're aware that that tile can be flipped over, and you could potentially go into that dining hall from the tunnels underneath. There is a flip space there. You will then have to descend into those tunnels before you can then move over into the crystal tunnels, as that is the only way to get up onto the final tile. So you will have to be moving to that tile and then into the alchemist chamber from there before you can complete the chapter. All right. There are special chapter rules for this, and they basically state that when starting this chapter, you've got a tiny little bit of text, and that's pretty much it. There are special rules for the kitchen tile, and for the dining hall tunnels, and for the crystal tunnels, as well as the final tile where you have the final encounter. Now, there are a lot of special rules for a lot of the different rooms in this game, so we're going to have to spend a little bit of time talking about the overall arc of this story so that we know kind of what goes into choosing your party, and then we'll go from there. So the kitchen, first off, is the first special tile that you're going to have to deal with. And this is the other side of that Ms. Maggie achievement that we had in Chapter 1. We did go ahead and avoid that in Chapter 1, so we do need to get it here. But it's kind of well advised to do it anyway. It's nice and easy to do this here, and it is actually another way that you can advance the page. So actually, I stand corrected. You actually can get the chapter end marker all the way up to page 9 in this chapter, because you also have Miss Maggie. Okay, so this is picking up with Chapter 1. This is a place where it's a little bit confusing how this is supposed to work. Miss Maggie works the same way as she did in Chapter 1, and basically you pop up here, and if you run into Miss Maggie, she's going to swat you up onto the counter. And well, she's going to try to swat you up on the counter if you don't have that achievement from Chapter 1. So the way it works is basically, if you don't have that achievement, then if you defeat a rat, then you have to roll a die, and if you do not roll a star, then she doesn't recognize that you're a friend. She just sees another pest running around the kitchen. She tries to hit you with your mop. What that does is, instead of defeating the rat, you put the rat up onto the kitchen counter, and your mouse character gets knocked down, which means you have to spend a movement standing up. So you lose the defeat, you're knocked down, and she's going to keep doing this until you roll a star after defeating a rat. So that can protract the combat, it can inconvenience you, and just make everything drag out quite a bit if you don't roll a star pretty quick. The plus side to this is that if you do manage to roll a star, then she will no longer swat at you, and you gain the Miss Maggie achievement, which is going to help you in a later chapter. Because we didn't get it in Chapter 1, we're going to want to try to pursue that here in Chapter 3. But it also is going to, as I said, advance the chapter end marker 1 page on the chapter track, which is very, very nice. So it's usually worth going in here to try to get that 1 page. The danger of this tile, however, is that the special surge is Brody. So we are risking Brody. However, there's also a special search here that applies to the whole tile. Now again, the way you read this, the special search is number 4, and the number 4 here is off to the side, which means that it applies to the entire tile. So anywhere you search on this tile while you're in here, you can find either the dinner fork or the disguises. So notice it says dinner fork or disguises. If you search, you can pick whichever one you like. It's not 100% clear, but it seems to me that if you keep searching, if you want, with a subsequent mouse, and you successfully search again, you could opt to take the other one that you hadn't taken the first time. I don't know that there's a rule that says otherwise, per se. So that's one thing to consider. So why would you care about the disguises or the dinner fork? Well, they have their uses regularly anyway, but the disguises especially are going to be very important for the dining hall tile. If you go up into the kitchen and then go over into the dining hall, well, then you are going to wander in there, and if you have the disguises, that tile is going to play out a certain way. If you do not have the disguises, then the tile will play out in a very different way. This is a big concern because once again on this tile, the special surge is Brody. Okay, now the rules for this tile are a little bit complicated, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by first talking about the simple version of the tile, and then we'll get into the more complicated version of the tile. The simple way this happens is if you do not get the disguises in the kitchen or by finding it randomly in the deck. So if you don't have the disguises when you enter the dining hall, then basically you have a special setup and you're going to be facing 3 rat warriors scattered along the 3 minion spaces, and you're going to have 2 elite rat warriors up on the table. And you're going to have to deal with them. There is a grape token on the table, which means you can go ahead and you can go grab a grape if you want. But facing rats, the grape is significantly less useful. You can use it in conjunction with the dinner fork. And if you don't have the disguises, then you probably have the dinner fork, at least if you're coming from the kitchen. But that said, the grape is not especially useful. More of a concern here is you have to defeat all these rats before you can move on. And once again, the surge is Brody. So you're facing 5 rats, 2 of whom are ranged attack with 3 dice and are up on an elevated position that's hard to reach. So if you're loaded up with a bunch of melee characters, you're going to have a rough time getting up there trying to reckon with those guys. And odds are starting to look pretty good that you're going to trigger that Brody surge. And then most likely, unless we got lucky with a search, we don't have the catnip this time. So Brody's going to be a potential to show up in the kitchen and then again in the dining hall, depending on how things go. Something to bear in mind. On the other hand, if you roll into this room with the disguises in your possession, you are going to wind up playing a dice game that could potentially make this go a whole lot easier for you. Now, the rules for this are a little bit involved. They're not presented in the clearest way. And in fact, I had to contact the designer of the game personally to try to get a little bit of clarity on this. He was very kind enough to oblige me on that, and I thank him enormously. Jerry, you're awesome. But yeah, let's just go through and let's talk about how this dice game plays. So when you enter the game with the disguises, you have the option, of course you don't have to use it, but you have the option of choosing to use the disguises to initiate the dice game. The dice game works as follows. The first thing to note is you're going to have a different setup. If you walk in and you go through the room normally, you have the special setup with 2 elites on the table, 3 regular on the floor. And when you play the dice game, instead you're going to be facing 6 regular rats and no elites. So that's the first thing to note. The second thing is you're not starting out in combat, and the best way to figure out kind of most of the rules here at play are, well, the best way to see this is think of it as kind of taking place out of time or out of the game's normal timeline. So as you rotate through rounds and rounds and rounds of the dice game, you're not adding cheese to the wheel. Your mice are not taking regular turns, therefore they can't do things that they normally could do on their turn, like, and most importantly, trade cheese amongst themselves. So if you're, you need to plan to make sure you have your cheese, if possible, allocated and divvied up the way you want it before entering this room. What's going to happen when you play the dice game is, first thing, you are not going to shuffle the initiative and you're not adding the rats to the initiative track. You are keeping your mice on the initiative track as was, and you are beginning with the first mouse in that order. So you're going right back to the top of the order, and it doesn't matter where you were in the initiative order when you came into the room. Each mouse is then going to take a turn. The rats are playing against you, so their participation occurs when each mouse takes their turn. And it's basically a face-off between your mouse and one of the rats. You're going to roll 4 action dice, and this is described here in this text where you see all these stars that are being referenced here, and that's basically how you're keeping track of the score of the little battle between the mouse and the rat. The mouse is going to roll 4 action dice. You're going to count how many stars you have, and you obviously can have a maximum of 4. Now, each of these is a 50-50 shot, so on average you're going to get 2. But those other dice that you do not roll stars on, you have the option of re-rolling some number of them to try again to get a star. This obviously increases your odds of getting 3 or 4 stars, and therefore having a better chance in the game. How many dice you roll is dependent on your lore. So if you have Maginos, he's got a lore of 3. Items notwithstanding, he's going to start with a lore of 3, so he can roll up to 3 dice. He doesn't have to roll 3, he could roll 1 or 2. But by contrast, someone like Filch, who has only 1 lore, can roll at most 1 die a second time. So Maginos has better odds of winning this game than anybody else, and Filch and Lily have the worst odds. Something to bear in mind when you're creating your party right off the bat, because this is a pretty important round in the game, because it's going to determine how quickly you're going to be able to get out of this room and possibly avoid an encounter with Brody, which is a significant portion of the chapter if you're running up against time or possible defeat. So one of the things to note about this, of course, is you are going to be, when successful, taking one of the rats off the table. And that really is your primary motivation here, okay? There is a wager of cheese, and you can win cheese, so it is potentially possible to come out of this with just a pile of cheese, which is, of course, wonderful. But as your odds of winning are less good than you might hope for, basically only Maginos has better than average odds of winning. So most of the time you're going to be losing these encounters. So on average, you're going to lose cheese, not gain it. Okay? But the longer you can keep this game going, the more rats you're going to take off the table, and then when the dice game is over, you're going to have to face whatever rats are left over before you're able to leave the room. So that's what I was talking about in terms of divvying up the cheese and you're going to want to try to stretch it out, take as many rolls as you can to try to get rats off the table, and really don't worry about the cheese. And the way you do this is by betting the minimum amount every single time. Honestly, even with Maginos, because his odds are so slightly above 50-50, it's just not worth it trying to gamble to get a few extra cheese. Right, so we've explained how the mice roll. The rats are then going to roll a little bit differently. First of all, they have the advantage that they get to roll 5 dice instead of your 4. And on top of that, they're going to win any ties. So you actually have to wind up with more stars than they do. And again, if with a 50-50 shot rolling 5 dice, on average, they're going to get 2 or 3. So because you have to win you're going to lose ties, you have to get more stars than them, and therefore your odds of winning each one of these encounters are relatively low. All right, so that's something to bear in mind here. But again, every time you win, you are going to take one of the rats off. Now, how much cheese is at stake here? And this is one of the fundamental mechanics here. You are going to bet between 0 and 3 cheese each time a mouse takes a turn. And then you're going to roll your dice your way, the rat's going to roll his way, and you compare the results. The winner gets that cheese that was wagered. So if you wager 2, you now have 4. If you wager 2 and lose, you now have lost those 2. Hopefully you have some left. Okay? But if you have no cheese to wager, or if you're ballsy and you choose to wager 0 even though you have cheese in your stash, if you win, you still get 1 cheese. Okay? If you lose, then that ends the dice game for everybody. And what will happen as a consequence is battle will begin. Now we'll talk about how that goes in just a second, but important to note here that, again, the point of this is to try to get the rats off the table. So you're going to be, kind of going and wagering as little as you possibly can. So probably 1 cheese each time until you run out, and then 0 hoping to win. I guess the fluff here would be you're gambling with the rats. They spill the beans while they're carousing and playing games. You get a clue. And then that obviously is part of the victory condition for the chapter. And then I guess if you bet 0 and win, then you've kind of bluffed your way through the round and they give you your cheese. You kind of pretended to bet 1. But if you bet 0 and lose, they want their cheese. You don't have any to give them. The jig is up. They kind of see through your disguises at this point once they've been made suspicious, and the fight's on. Once again, I want to reiterate this. You cannot trade cheese between party members during the game. Okay. And once again, you start at the top of the initiative order. That was what it was when it came in. It does not change. When you cycle back around to the top from the bottom, you're not adding cheese to the wheel. This is taking place out of time. When the game is over, whether you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or all 6 rats remaining, if there are rats remaining, you go into a battle. The way the initiative in the battle works is you basically take all your mice, and again, you do not shuffle, you do not rearrange the initiative order, you simply slide everyone down, and you add the rats to the top of the initiative order, and combat begins from the top spot, so the rats are going first. This is a big deal. The reason for this is if those rats are going first, and if you have 6 of them, here's what's going to happen. You're all adjacent to the rats, so they're going to attack the highest in initiative that hasn't been attacked yet. So that'll be mouse number 1. Then they'll attack mouse number 2, then 3, then 4. Guess what happens then? They go back up to mouse 1 because there is no tiebreaker. The only tiebreaker left is who's highest in initiative. So they're going to, rat number 5 is going to attack mouse number 1, and rat number 6 is going to attack mouse number 1. Therefore, if you have 6 rats on the table, they are going first, guaranteed before any of your mice are going, and the top mouse is going to get attacked by 3 of them. That is potentially quite dangerous, once again considering that you are also going to be reckoning with the fact that Brody is the special surge here. So this is a potentially dangerous fight unless you manage in the dice game to remove 2 or 3 of these rats at a minimum. That's the only way this becomes a little bit less scary. Now, bear in mind, running in here and facing 5 rats, 2 of which are elite, and having the Brody Surge is no picnic either. So it's not like I'm saying don't play the dice game because it's just too risky, but at least you're not right next to all the rats and they're not guaranteed in that situation to be going first. Bad luck can still hurt you in that regard. Okay, so bear all that in mind. But the last thing to note here that is really important is after the dice game is over, whether you eliminated all the rats or not, once the dice game is over, you've gained a clue, and you advance the chapter end marker 1 tick, which is going to allow you more time for the chapter as a whole, which of course is a very good thing. You've also gotten a clue, which combined with the last room, which is also part of the victory conditions, you have now guaranteed that if you clear that last room, you have the victory conditions in hand, you're going to be able to win the game. So if you get through this room and this dice game, that's obviously the most secure way to guarantee yourself the best odds of completing this chapter and winning. All right, so once you get out of that tile, whether you've done the dice game or you got through Brody or what, maybe avoided Brody somehow, once you get through that, then you're going to wind up in the dining hall tunnels, and there's really not a lot to it. There's a special search, and then you're going to wander into the crystal tunnels, and at that point we have our next opportunity to gain a clue for the chapter. Now basically all that really happens, the only rule for this tile is when you walk in, you have a story moment and you have the potential to gain a clue. That basically is going to involve rolling dice equal to your current lore. Now, even if you have the 4 mice with the worst possible total lore values, you're still going to be rolling a total of 6 dice. Odds are very low that you will not roll any stars on that. However, if you do not roll any stars, no one in the party has a vision and you do not get the clue. This is why you might consider going ahead with that dice game on top of any other considerations we've outlined already, just because that's, as long as you get through it alive, that's a guaranteed clue, whereas here you are rolling dice and you can potentially get a little hosed. Actually, I stand corrected. You're going to be rolling a minimum of 7 dice because you have 2 mice that only have 1. The other 3 all have 2, and you're required to take Maginos, who has a lore of 3. So you've got 5 between the 2 worst and Maginos, and then you have another 2 added in there. So you have 7 dice at least. So again, the odds are very, very small that you're not going to get a star, but it can happen. All right, but there's not a lot more to that tile, so again, you'd be drawing an encounter card and going through there. The last tile we have is basically your first, for want of a better word, boss battle, unless you count Skitterclack at the end of Chapter 2. But here is we're going to face, this is where we're going to face Captain Verst, who is the old captain of the guard in the castle, who seems to have sided with, no, he's not the captain he's Vanestra's captain of the guard. He was made the captain of the guard once Vanestra came by, but he had an old affiliation with the original castle denizens, and as such, they are disappointed in him. In this tile, you're going to have a special setup where Verst and a bunch of elite, again, ranged attack rats are going to be up on the two special areas. The mice are going to start down on the flip space, so pretty far away, and again, there's no way of getting up here. And as a result, you are looking at facing a heavy ranged attack setup, at least early on. So, it's something to bear in mind. You're going to have Maginos with you, who obviously has some ranged attack. But when you're starting this, I will tell you, having played through this, that this tile right here can be potentially pretty tough. The dice game can go south on you, and you have to worry about Brody early on. But this tile right here, especially because of some of the rules with Verst, can potentially be nasty. So you want to be able to hit hard, but you also want to be able to get to the enemies in order to be able to hit them at all. And that can be challenging. Now, this would be one reason why you might want to have the dinner fork, because you can use the dinner fork to catapult members of your party anywhere on the tile. You drop the fork, they stand on one end, you jump on the other, and they go flying off. So you could catapult Nez up onto the table, and he can start swinging that big old hammer, whatever you want to do. So that's certainly an option. You can also search here, and one of the special search areas, any place marked with a 5, you can get any scroll you want, and that would include the very helpfully they very helpfully put the teleport scroll as the picture here, because that would be a very good way to bounce up onto these areas that you might not otherwise be able to get to. Of course, if you have the fishhook and thread, that will also allow you to cross the red lines if you happen to get lucky, but that's not a scripted find anywhere in this chapter, so you'd have to get lucky and draw that with a random search. Otherwise, you're limited to the catapult or one of these special scrolls to get up there, or relying on ranged attackers, at least for the minions up here on the bookshelf. If you are stuck with no dinner fork, you pick the wrong scroll when you search, or you're just not able to search, you have maybe 1 or 2 ranged attackers, they both get captured, you just have no way of getting up here, and you can't attack across the red lines, you might be essentially totally hosed and unable to kill those elite rats up at the top, and they're just going to slowly keep firing at you until you're gone. So that's something to reckon with. It's a good idea to bring some ranged pop if you possibly can. The problem with that is our one required character has some ranged attack, but he's not like a gigantically heavy hitting ranged attacker. Lily can be pretty good ranged attacker, but she only has 1 lore. That's something to bear in mind when dealing with the crystal tunnels. She also, the other good ranged attacker that we have is, of course, Filch. He also only has 1 lore. So that is something to bear in mind. That matters for the crystal tunnels. It also matters for, of course, the dice game. So lore is not a small factor coming into this chapter, and unfortunately 2 of our best ranged options, possibly both of our 2 best ranged options, both have 1 lore. So we take a major hit in a couple of places to have some pop here. So that's one of the things we're going to have to reckon with as we decide to build our party. Let's bop over to the map, get started, and begin with a discussion of who we're even bringing along. Okay, so here is the setup for the chapter, and I think I misspoke actually when I was going through the storybook for this, actually, because upon closer review, of this tile right here, you'll notice it does not have a link. So even though these tunnels do go south and there is a tunnel tile arranged south of them, they don't connect. So it's actually not an option for the party to go any way other than through the kitchen first. And you do have to deal with Ms. Maggie. So again, if you've done Ms. Maggie in Chapter 1, you do have the benefit of not needing to worry about the fact that she might knock you up onto the counter, which does make it that much slightly less likely that you're going to be encountering Brody in that room. If you don't have to worry about kills being negated and such, there's a decent chance he can get through that room. At least if you enter without too much cheese on the wheel, there's a good chance he can get through that without bringing in Brody. And that's probably why the creators decided to have that tile face up here like so you could kind of tell which way you would really have to go in order to complete this chapter. So no matter what, we're then going to have to go into the dining hall and once again face Brody. Now, the best way to avoid Brody at least a second time is probably to engage in that dice game and hope to get lucky so that you have fewer rats to deal with and therefore less chance of cheesing the wheel before you can get the heck out of there. So that's going to be our goal. The big question right now that we're facing is, what do we want to do in order to maximize our odds? And there's a couple of tough decisions here. You do have to take Maginos, who's not the heaviest hitter in the world, which is a little scary for the final room and in the event that you face Brody. And then also, of course, when you're facing the rats and not wanting to have to face Brody in the first place, you want to be able to take him out quick. Maginos, at least with the skills that I've given him, not going to be the ideal choice there. But he is required, and he does have the benefit of having 3 lore, which is going to help us in the dice game and help ensure that we get that clue in the crystal tunnels. I have opted to bring Tilda along because Tilda's one of my heavier hitters. She has 2 lore. Other than Maginos, nobody can do better than that. And she's, of course, our healer, which is going to become relevant, especially if Brody starts tearing us apart. After that, it was a little less obvious. I like to have ranged attacks because it does help in the kitchen when you're facing those elite warriors. It does help, obviously, on most tiles to have ranged attacks, and it certainly helps on the final tile when you're facing all those ranged attackers in difficult locales. So I like taking Lily or Filch, but again, they only have 1 lore each. What I've opted to do is take Filch only. And my rationale is, yeah, he only has 1 lore, but it's essentially him with that 1 lore versus Nez with 2 lore. Nez is great, he's heavy hitting, but he's really slow. It's going to be really hard to get him up into those locations where he needs to be in order to do that damage. The only time I'm really going to regret having Filch instead of Nez is if Brody shows up and I really need to crush Brody with some heavy hitting. But Filch with that bow is not exactly a slouch either, so it's not like it's a giant advantage having Nez. Filch also has Energy Rush, which is going to give him multiple attack opportunities. And remember, Brody doesn't cheese the wheel, so the more attacks you can get on him, the better. Plus, Filch has the bonus on top of all of that, on top of it being ranged, on top of being fast. He also has this really unique ability of taking cheese off the wheel, which does, again, make it less likely, especially in that kitchen tile, that we're going to have to face Brody in the first place. So that was my rationale for taking Filch. I also just love having him. And along those same lines, I took Colin, 1, because, again, he has 2 lore. He hits almost as hard as Nez. He's more durable than Nez now that he has the coin shield. And with the Give Order ability, that helps offset the fact that I'm not taking more ranged attacks because he can just drop a cheese and give Filch or Maginos an extra attack. So that's the party I'm going to roll with. We'll see how it goes, cross our fingers, and dive in. Alright, so here we are on the first tile, and the rulebook not only doesn't have real special rules for this tile, it actually goes so far as to explicitly say you're going to begin by pulling an encounter card. So we'll go ahead and do that now and see what we get. We're on page 1, so we're beginning with 3 rats. That is not the worst thing in the world because We do have Filch in our party once again, and that is going to help us mitigate the amount of cheese that we have going into that next tile, which again is going to have Brody as a surge. So we want to try to get out of this room, obviously, but we want to get out of here with as little cheese on the wheel as possible so that we're not facing Brody, at least, if nothing else, not early in that room. You never know. The dice can be fickle things, but we just have 3 rats to deal with, and Filch can take cheese off the wheel, potentially. No ambush or mousetraps to deal with, so we're just going to dive in and shuffle our initiative and see where we're going. A couple of things happening here. First of all, Colin is going to get a piece of cheese, and that is because he is not first in initiative. We also note that Filch is above the Rat Warriors for now in initiative, and in line with when I was on this tile in Chapter 1, I contend that these 2 spaces can see each other, although the line seems to go right by the foot of that wall. I don't consider that to be blocking line of sight. Even if it did, I think that, you know, if you were able to take up one of these 2 positions here or here, you should be able to find some way to get a shot in there. So I'm going to begin battle with Filch firing at one of those rats down there, trying to take him out. And he got a piece of cheese and one of these, I remember his special item for Filch is the accurate bow, which has 2 hits when you roll the bow star. So as a result, this guy is facing 2 hits versus his 2 defense dice. He blocks only 1, and I really don't know why graphically the dice for some reason get wonky when they show up here. Everything else displays fine, and as you play through, it gets working. But that's just a Map Tools glitch. But in any event, I have killed that rat with Filch. As a result, Filch gains another cheese for his kill, and that rat not only, in addition to all that, that rat didn't cheese the wheel. We now have Maginos, and I think Maginos is going to do the same thing. He's a little bit less powerful with his attacks. But I'm going to go ahead and snag one of those cheap pieces of cheese from Filch in order to try... Whoops, that's not what I want to do. I want to trade with Filch and grab a cheese in order to then spend that cheese in order to power his 3-die Mystic Bolt attack against that rat. And that is a big-time hit. That's 3 hits, so once again we're guaranteed to kill that rat. We just want him to not cheese the wheel. He did not, and we're off to a phenomenal start here. That's wonderful. Okay, we got 2 kills, and we're up 1 cheese overall. Tilda right now doesn't have too much that she needs to do. I'm going to let that rat close with me before I worry about it, but he's only going to be able to get to here, so she can safely advance to this space. She can't fail to do so, so I'll move her up there, and I'll let her search. Not finding anything. It is now the rat's turn. I'll roll his movement. He's only able to move 1 space. And now we come to Colin. He could give order, but that's not going to allow anybody to do anything. So I think in line with what Tilda's doing, now that rat only moving 1 space means he can only get to here. I think there's really no reason not to just take advantage of the lull here. He's going to move forward 1 space because again that rat can only get this far, and he's just going to search and not find anything. Filch is going to come forward there as well, and he's also going to search, not find anything. Maginos will come forward and search and find something. And it's the Clockwork Grenade, which is going to be pretty handy to give maybe to Colin in the later rooms. This is a nice item. Basically, when you choose a space and you attack all figures on that space with a +2 ranged attack, so he could roll... Oh, you know what? That would be nice for him to have, but I just realized only the Tinkerer can use it. Therefore, I do not have anyone in the party that can make use of the Clockwork Grenade, unfortunately. Yeah. So he's just going to have to unfortunately discard that in order to steal a piece of cheese. Oh well, that would have been nice. And Tilda's then going to fall back and search. And she'll find something as well. She got a moldy cheese card, which is unfortunate, but she didn't have any cheese on her, so it didn't hurt her in any way, shape, or form. And I guess we have the benefit of that going into the discard pile and not being something we can draw again later. So there's that. The Rat Warrior is now going to move 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. And that, of course, means it's time to go ahead and try to slaughter him. So I'm going to have Colin come down here into that space and swing away. He scores 1 hit only, and the rat is rolling 2 dice, but he does not block. That then kills the rat. And again, we are still using that house rule endorsed by the creator that says that the last mouse in initiative, if he's the one that eliminates an enemy, you don't cheese the wheel going on to the next rat. So what that means then is we have 3 pieces of cheese in the party. Unless, I think I might not have taken away Colin's cheese. Oh, I didn't need to take Colin's cheese. I was thinking I would have to take Colin's cheese because he was going to use Give Order, but he didn't have to use Give Order because Filch and Maginos killed guys on their own without his help. So Colin does have a piece of cheese. Okay. He's fairly likely to get another one when we go into the next room, which means we probably will roll in there with 2 cheese. We have no wounds, nothing to worry about there. I want Colin to have one for Give Order, but I think because we have that luxury, what I'm going to do is I'm going to trade with Maginos, with Filch, and take his cheese. And the reason for that is if he searches successfully, he can then use the Find ability. But we'll see if that's even an option. He unfortunately was not successful, so that's not a worry. So then when we come back around to Maginos, I think Maginos is going to take that cheese back from Filch. And that's so that he can power either Invisibility or Mystic Bolt when we go into the next room. And with nothing else to do, I'm not going to search with Colin and put cheese on the wheel, again, knowing that I'm facing Brody in the next room. So, since Maginos can't fail to get here, I'll just go there and move us on. And we are now already up into the kitchen. We place everyone on the flip space. We will go ahead and clear the search markers. And we'll check the rule book real quick to see if there are any special rules here. There are, but we've already talked about some of them, so this should be quick. All right, so in the kitchen, we have 6 rules that we need to worry about. 5 of the 6 apply to the entire tile and are not location specific. 1 has to do with the bucket on the floor at the edge of the table. The first rule is just a special setup. You place 2 elite rat warriors on the table and 2 rat warriors down on the ground, in other words, 1 here and here. There's a story moment which you read, which is basically, again, you come in there and the rats of Vanestra are tormenting Ms. Maggie in the kitchen, being jerks, and so the heroes, being heroic, want to help. The third rule is the Ms. Maggie thing, and this works as it did in Chapter 1. Upon a kill of an enemy, you have to roll a star, otherwise that enemy is not killed but is instead knocked to the table. And you are knocked down, requiring you to have to spend some movement to get up. Now, unlike the first chapter, there's no cheese that they're eating and adding to the wheel or anything like that, but we do still have Brody as our surge, which is, I believe, rule number 6. So that's rules 1, 2, 3. Rule number 4 is that anywhere on the tile we have that special search for the dinner fork or the disguises. We are definitely going to go for the disguises, and depending on how things go, we might have a decision whether we want to take the dinner fork. Whether that's allowed or not is a little unclear, but it seems to me that it is allowed. So if we have time to do it without tempting Brody, we might go ahead and do so. Special rule also for number 5 is that that bucket space grants cover. The cover being basically if you're in there against a ranged attack, you can hide in the bucket for a little bit of cover, and you roll 1 additional defense die. So if you're on the bucket, you're getting attacked with range, you have an extra defense die. And that's it. Alright, I have placed the bad guys according to the instructions. 2 elite rats up top, 2 regular rats down on the bottom. And away we go. We're going to shuffle up the initiative. And rats are down below, pretty handy. And we have Maginos going first, which means Colin is not first. So we'll begin play by giving him a cheese. And it is Maginos' turn. Now, he only has access to Mystic Bolt and Invisibility, but I'll mention that if he had Chain Lightning, this might be a good time to use it. Again, we're trying to get through this tile quickly, if possible. But the real decision he's facing is whether he wants to take out one of these guys or one of these guys. Now, you might think the elite rats are more dangerous, but the reason you might think that is they're rolling 3 dice. However, just like you, they're rolling for bows when they're making a ranged attack rather than for swords. So, yes, they're rolling 3 dice versus the rats, the regular rats, 2 dice. But the regular rats are rolling for swords, which are 3 times in 6. And these guys are rolling for bows, which are only 2 times in 6. So they're rolling 3 dice at a 1 and 3, which means on average their expected damage output is about 1 hit. These guys too are rolling a 50-50 hit on 2 dice, so their average expected damage output is 1. So on average they do the same damage. These guys can potentially hit for 3, but they're also more likely to miss completely. So their average balances out. Their defenses are the same, so it really comes down to who else could get up there and so forth, more so than anything else. Filch is obviously the best candidate to get up onto that table because he can't fail to roll less than a 4. As long as he rolls a 5, he can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and get up there and attack those guys. That said, the rats down at the bottom are not as much of a threat, so Maginos might want to try to take out one of those elite rats. Colin will have no trouble getting over to this guy. Filch can then get up there, hopefully, and engage one of those guys, and if not, he could always shoot his bow. The reason I would be trying to use my dagger instead, again, is because he's higher than them in initiative, and that would lower their defense dice, reducing their chance of rolling cheese and cheesing the wheel, which brings us closer to seeing Brody. Always in the back of my mind here, because remember, any cheese we pile up here, even if we avoid seeing Brody on this tile, our next tile is that dining hall. And in the dining hall, the surge again is Brody. Now, we might be able to go a ways towards avoiding him, depending on how the dice game goes, but you got to have some luck, and you got to have a certain amount of cheese going in there to really have much of a shot of doing too much. So there's a very good chance that if we don't get out of here without a significant shortage of cheese on the wheel, then we're going to be seeing Brody, if not here, then in the next room. So I'm definitely watching that close. That said, Maginos, I think, is going to move onto the bucket, and he can't fail to get there. He's just going to do that on the chance that it will give him a little bit of cover. And then he's going to fire at one of those elite rats, and he is going to power his Mystic Bolt in doing so. And he does not hit, but he does roll a cheese, giving him 2 cheese, so he effectively went there and gained a cheese. It's now Filch's turn. We'll see how far he can move. And luck, unfortunately, is not with me here, but I think he's still going to try to engage one of those rat warriors, so he also is going to go into the bucket, and he's going to fire at them again looking for bows, and he hits for 4 hits. So that is definitely a guaranteed kill. Even if this guy cheeses the wheel once, it's coming right back off the wheel, so my only concern is that he doesn't roll 2 cheeses, which he did not. He blocked 2 of the 4 hits against him. He is 1 dead rat, and Filch gains a cheese for the kill, which is nice because that lets him power Find. It also lets him power Energy Rush, which is a question. However, I do want to try to stockpile cheese before going into the dice game. So I'm not necessarily going to be super cavalier about spending cheese on Energy Rush this early in the fight when I have nothing on the wheel to really concern me as of yet. And Filch is still around to take more cheese off the wheel if anything gets up there. So I think I'm just going to move on to Colin. And I might consider using Give Order to let Filch try to kill somebody if there was cheese on the wheel. But there isn't, so I'm just going to see how far he can move. And it's only 3, which means he can't get up there and engage that guy. So I'm just instead going to move over here and engage this guy. And that guarantees that this guy is going to attack Maginos, but Maginos has cover. There's really nothing I could do about that because I cannot get up there. This guy is going to be coming for Tilda. He might even not reach her. So I'm going to go here just to avoid him fighting Filch on his turn. Actually, he would go for Maginos if I didn't move somebody closer. So, yeah, I definitely want to do that. He is going to attack this rat. He's going to get 2 hits. We'll see what the rat does in response. He blocks only 1. That then is a dead rat. So Colin is victorious, Filch is victorious, Maginos is eating cheese, and Tilda is awaiting her turn. We come to Rat Warrior. See how far he can move. He can move 3, so he enters Tilda's space and attacks Tilda, hitting her once. Because of her warding staff and her breastplate, she's rolling 3 in defense and blocking that strike. So we have no cheese on the wheel, no wounds thus far. We move to the Elite Rat Warrior, but in finishing his turn, the Rat Warriors move up in initiative. The Elite Rat Warrior will target the closest mouse, would be either Maginos or Filch, and it would then be the one highest in initiative, so that's Maginos, who normally is only rolling 1 defense, but he's in the bucket, so he is rolling 2. We'll see if he hits it all in the first place. He scores 2 hits, so Maginos must defend against 2 strikes. He does not block either, and is the proud recipient of 2 wounds. Possibly because of being in the bucket, though, he did at least get 1 cheese as a consolation prize. And we still don't have any cheese on the wheel, so things could certainly be a lot worse. But we're probably going to have to give up a couple cheese to heal him, because we certainly don't want to eat a capture this early in the game. It is now Tilda's turn, and I think what I'm going to do is not play too many games with leaving these rats alive. I'm going to see how far she can move, because if she can get 5, that allows her to move up onto the table. Now remember, there is a rule that says you can't leave a tile, a space, if you're outnumbered by the enemy, but she was not outnumbered by the enemy, so she is able to leave that space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and she's going to engage that Elite Warrior. And again, the only reason for this is he's going to be having an easy time attacking Maginos. I can control better who this guy is attacking, and it's just hard to get people up there. So since she can, let's try to limit the danger. She scores 2 hits. He blocks neither of them. He does cheese the wheel, but we are down to only 1 enemy up here. And I just realized on that very first kill, I've already messed up. I forgot to roll for the first guy I killed, which I believe was Filch, killing that initial Rat Warrior. So let's go ahead and roll that, and then we'll see whether or not I need to restart this tile. Okay, so retroactively rolling that star, Filch did roll the star. That allows me to gain Miss Maggie's attention, convince her that we're fine, and I don't need to go back. So that's retroactively. I did screw that up. As soon as I had that first kill, I should have rolled that, but that was the roll that I got, so we can go ahead and proceed as though I had gotten that originally and just mopped my brow in relief. Okay, so the result of that is we are going to add a story achievement, and that is Ms. Maggie. We are also going to add a page to the chapter end marker. So we have until page 6 before the chapter is over. Okay, coming back to the resolution of Tilda's turn, she killed the rat. We do still have an enemy, but the elite rats are gone. And we only have one cheese on the wheel. Now it's Maginos' turn, but I am going to do everything I can to give Filch a chance to kill that last rat instead of anyone else. And one of the whole reasons, or one of the big things I want to do while I'm here is, of course, try to find those disguises. So rather than attacking anybody with Maginos, and because I'm going to be able to control who this guy is fighting, I'm going to make sure he's fighting Filch instead of Maginos. I don't need to worry about him casting invisibility to keep himself safe or anything like that. I'm just going to have him search and hopefully find those disguises, which he does, which is wonderful. So let's go ahead and grab those. And we'll put those into the party stash. All right, that's wonderful. I'm not sure why that's doing this. Let me pin that up. There we go. Okay. Excellent. So Maginos is hurt, but we're otherwise in good shape in this room. That 50-50 roll for getting Miss Maggie on the first attack, that's a big deal. But yeah, what we want to do now is have Filch try to kill that rat, and once again, that guy is below him in initiative despite moving up last turn. So Filch is just going to come over here and try to stab him. Rolling 2 melee dice. He does hit once, and this guy's only rolling 1 defense die. He does not block it, which means he is killed. Filch does gain a cheese as a result. He's up to 3. And we take that actually off the wheel. This is very, very good because we're done with this room. That went exceptionally well. We got pretty lucky. I mean, we get some good strategy. The only real bad thing here is Maginos is hurt, and I do think I want to heal him up before I leave here. I don't think I want to roll into the next room, potentially, because the way that's set up, potentially you're facing, if the dice game doesn't go well, you're facing 6 rats and they all get to go first. If Maginos is early in the initiative, he's going to get clobbered. With only 1 hit point, that's almost a guaranteed capture. So I do not want that to happen. Another consideration is in that dice game, I'm going to want to try to make sure everybody's got at least a little bit of cheese to play with so that the game doesn't end too early and I'm able to kind of keep it going so that I have a chance to try to eliminate some of those rats before we join battle with them. So as much as it pains me to do it, I think I'm going to have to steal a couple of cheese from Maginos and heal him on Tilda's turn. Filch is probably the one I want to have the most cheese because of his 1 lore, but I'm going to try to spread it around as much as I possibly can and just kind of hope for the best. I only have 8 cheese total. If I spend 2, I only have 6, which means Maginos and somebody else is going to have 1 and the other 2 are only going to have 2. I really don't have, unless I get a cheese cache, I don't have much else to hope for in terms of getting more cheese before I leave. But I am going to put 1 cheese on the wheel in order to get him healed before I go in there and face that, even though it does potentially cost me the end of the dice game a little earlier than I want. But yeah, I just don't have much choice there. Colin is therefore going to facilitate some of that movement. I will, let's see, I'll have him Yeah, he's going to go up and he's just going to take a couple of cheese from Maginos, who needs it less than anybody else. And then he's going to simply search and hopefully find something good this time. Throwing daggers. Okay, normally I wouldn't be too giddy about that, but again, especially on that last tile, having Colin with a ranged attack is nothing to scoff at. It would only be a 2 battle, but still. So he's going to hang on to that. He's not going to equip it, but he'll hang on to that. And as much as I want cheese, I think that might be worth more than 1 cheese. That might not even help me in the dice game. Tilda now is going to check the cheese situation, and I think she's going to bop down there and take 2 from Colin. And she can't fail to move down there, so she'll then trade with Colin and take 2 cheese. No, she's going to take 3 cheese from Colin, because she's now going to spend 2 cheese to heal Maginos. That ends Tilda's turn. We come back to Maginos, and we then put a cheese on the wheel. Maginos has very little he can do except maybe shuffle some cheese around. Filch has 3. Either Colin or Tilda should probably get 1. Maginos has the best odds of anybody in the dice game, so maybe I'll have Colin take 1 more from Filch. But then as a result, Maginos really doesn't have anything to do, so he's just going to skip his turn. Filch will grab that, give that cheese to Colin. Actually, wait. Filch is going to search, and we'll make sure he doesn't get something cheese-wise that is interesting before trading. He doesn't find anything, so now he will trade with Colin, giving him 1 cheese. And what that means is Colin and Filch each have 2 cheese, Maginos and Tilda each have 1, and that guarantees that Filch and Colin are each going to at least get 3 turns. These guys are only going to get a maximum of 2 if they keep losing, but they have better odds than these guys. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. That's Filch's turn. Colin can do nothing of any note. Tilda could search, but it would cheese the wheel, so Colin's just going to move on and take us on to, again, he can't fail to move here, and move us on to, oh. Okay, so this is interesting. I really don't know how this happened, but somehow the image that I got and incorporated into my digital software suite here is misprinted. Maybe it's an early version that was corrected later, I don't know. But this right here, what you're seeing is a scan of my physical copy. So this is the way it's supposed to look, at least in the physical copy that I have, and in the way that matches the rulebook's version. You see you have exits on the north, the south, and on the east side of that tile in the rulebook, which matches what we have here, north, south, and east. For some reason, the digital picture that I have here that I've been working with has exits on the east, west, and south, but not on the north. I found this digital picture and put it in because it was such a cleaner and prettier picture. But I never realized until now that this doesn't actually line up, which is very strange. I will have to go in and try to fix that somehow, but what we're going to do is we're going to continue knowing that there actually is a link up here. So imagine that this right here is actually right here, because that's how it's supposed to be. And ignore what your little eyes are telling you right now. We are here now in the dining hall, and let me clear the search markers. And let's pop over to the rulebook and take a look at how this dice game is supposed to go. Okay, so story-wise, what is going on when we come into the dining hall is we have the disguises. And the way the disguises normally work is you're able to play the disguises when you have an encounter card, and normally you would be facing rats. You can play the disguises, and the regular rats anyway, not the elite ones, but the regular rats are just defeated like automatically. And I guess the idea is you put on these disguises, you look enough like rats that the idiot rats can't recognize that you're foes rather than friends. And so they just kind of shuffle off to Buffalo, right? But anybody else, roaches don't care. Centipedes don't care, and elite rats are smart enough to see through the disguise, I guess is the idea. That's the way it normally works. Here it's a special situation. You walk in and you find that there are a bunch of rats in the dining hall cavorting and carousing and playing dice games and just having fun. It's guards being guards. And in typical, medieval stereotype fashion, all guards ever do is sit around, not pay attention, and roll dice and get drunk, so that you can take their keys and let the prisoner out. Right? That's pretty much how that's what they're hired to do. It's in their job description. So yeah, even in their rat form, it's more or less what they're doing. So when we have the disguises, we walk in, we look like rats. We're able to join in their dice game, get them talking while they're in their cups, and get them to spill the beans, as it were, reveal some clues to us, and we can learn some secrets. So that's pretty much what we're after here, and that's why when we're done with the dice game, we have got a little bit of information, and that's one of the clues we need to complete the chapter. All right. Now, the way the setup goes here is we're going to place 6 rats up on the table. And we are not going to add them to the initiative because we're not actually in combat. We are still going to keep the initiative in our game. And all the mice are going to be up here with the rats. And we'll go ahead and grab 6 rat warriors as well and put them up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And basically what we're gonna wind up doing here is I'm gonna put these guys more or less in order so we can kind of keep it straight. And I might actually put our mice in order too of initiative. So it's then Filch, Tilda's last. Alright, so we're going something like this. I don't think the order of the rats matters actually. Basically what we're going to do is we're supposed to go through an initiative order and play dice with the enemy, and if we win a round, we remove one of those rat warriors. If we lose a round, we lose our bet, and if we lose a round when we haven't had any cheese to bet, then it's game over, and we're forced to fight any rats that are left, and again, we're facing at that point a surge of Brody. On top of that, the rats are being put in the top slot in initiative. That hurts Filch with his dagger, but more importantly, it lets them go first when that combat starts. So if the dice game goes south on you real fast here, you could potentially be facing 6 rats, all of whom will get the jump on you. And notice in this situation with Maginos going first, he's going to be the one getting attacked twice right off the bat. Very good chance he's going to get captured. Filch is also going to get attacked twice. Colin's going to get attacked once. Tilda's going to attack once, unless I can start taking some of these rats off the board. On top of that, before I can even start to kill them, there's a very good chance with 6 attacks that they might be getting us pretty close to hitting the surge and bringing Brody in. Now, there is a bit of good news in that. Brody pouncing and chasing, this is considered a single space. So if Brody were to pounce on this, yeah, he would attack all the members of my party, but he would also attack all of the rats. So Brody is going to do a little bit of friendly fire. That would help us. But whoever's left at the end of that sequence, assuming maybe Maginos was captured, is then going to have to deal with Brody. And that's just never fun. So ideally, we'd like to, and it's not like it's impossible. It's not like I'm going to, run home and cry to mama if that happens or anything. But I'd like to avoid it if I can. So let's just see how this dice game goes. It's very chancy, but that's the name of the game. All right, so let's dive in and let's get going, rolling some bones. You roll 4 dice. The rats roll 5, but you are allowed to roll as many dice as you wish up to your lore value, and you each count how many stars you have. And the bad news is they're not only rolling, they don't get any re-rolls, but they roll one more die than you, and they win a tie. So you're likely to lose most of these contests. But when you lose, all you lose is any cheese that you wagered. When they lose, you gain the cheese that you wagered, and you remove that rat. So you are steadily, even if you only win a couple of these, facing 4 rather than 6 makes a huge difference when combat starts. Now, you might be real low on cheese when that happens, again, is the downside here. Maginos is the only one, because of his 3 rerolls, who has a better than average chance of winning. So as a result, and it's only like a little bit above 50%. So on just as a rule of thumb, only ever bet 1 cheese. You just got to be swimming in cheese for it to be even a considerable, a thing to even think about to wager more than 1, because what you want to do is be getting these rats off the table. That's your focus. Therefore, you want to be engaging in as many of these contests as you can, because nobody's likely in enough of a degree to be winning to make it worth betting more than that. Okay, so Maginos is going to roll his 4 dice. He rolls no stars, so he's going to re-roll 3 of those and get 1 star. So on his 7 dice, he got 1 star. The rat then is going to roll 5 dice to counter. He got 3 stars. Maginos then loses that 1 cheese that he wagered. Now, I'm not going to specify this every time. I'm just going to tell you they're always wagering 1. Now, again, Maginos is now out of cheese. So when it comes around to Maginos again, he'd better win, because if he loses, game over. That's just how this goes. Filch now is rolling, again, 4 dice to start. He rolls 2 stars. He has 1 lore, so he can re-roll 1 of those dice. Does not get a star, so he got 2 stars. Now remember, the rats on average are going to roll 2 or 3, because they're rolling 5 dice and it's a 50-50 shot. So I've gotten pretty unlucky, and even average luck is going to lose me here. So we'll just see how this goes. All right, Filch again is going to lose a cheese. Not going well for me. Colin gets to roll his 4 dice. He gets 2 stars. He can re-roll the 2 non-stars and get 1 more star. So he got 3. There's a chance he could win this, but he did not, because he loses ties. So Colin loses 1 cheese. Tilda is going to roll her 4 dice, get 2 stars, re-roll the 2 non, get nothing, and then the rat she's facing will get 2 stars as well. She loses a tie. She loses 1 cheese. So after 4 rounds, I have taken no rats off the table. I've lost 4 cheese, and there's a very good chance that Maginos now is going to end this for me. But we'll see how it goes. He gets 2. He can re-roll 2, getting him up to 3. And this rat rolls only 2. So that rat is taken off, and Maginos now regains 1 piece of cheese. Now, I can't trade cheese back and forth between people, so I am just having to deal with who's got what. But Filch does still have a piece of cheese, so he can take another shot at this. He got only 1 star. He can only get 1 reroll. Doesn't get anything. So this guy now, of course, beats him. Filch is out of cheese. Colin has 1 cheese. He rolls 3. He'll re-roll the non and get 4. So he got 4 cheese, but it's still possible he could get beaten. This guy rolled only 3 cheese, so Colin gains a cheese and takes 1 of the rats off the table. We come now to Tilda, who has no cheese. If she loses, it's game over. She rolls 4 dice, gets 2 stars. She rolls 2 of them and gets 4. Badass. This guy only rolled 2, so we have taken that rat off the table, and Tilda gains 1 cheese. We come back to Maginos, who has 1 cheese to gamble. He's going to roll his 4 dice. He gets 3 stars. He can re-roll the non-star, and he gets a star. So this guy has to get 4 or more. He gets 5. Maginos loses his cheese. Oh, that was unfortunate. Okay, Filch has no cheese to gamble with. He's going to roll his 4 dice and get 4 stars. He does cheat at dice, we know that. This guy does not get enough stars to beat him, so that guy is removed from the game. And Filch gains 1 cheese. Okay, I've come cripplingly close a couple of times here, but I have managed to take 4 of these rats off the table, and overall I think I'm down maybe 1 or 2 pieces of cheese. That's it. Colin has 2 cheese to gamble with. He's still only going to gamble 1. He's going to roll his 4 dice, get 3 stars. He'll re-roll that 1. So he has 3 stars here. This rat is going to roll his 5 and get only 1 cheese. So that rat goes away. Wow. I did not think this was going to go this well. We come now to Tilda, who has 1 cheese to gamble with. She'll go ahead and roll her 4. She gets 2 stars. She can re-roll 2. She's up to 3. And this guy rolls 3. So he wins and takes Tilda's cheese. Maginos is down to 0 cheese. He's going to go ahead and roll his dice, get nothing. Re-roll 3 of them and get 1 star. So unless we're really lucky, this is game over. And it is, in fact, game over. So we have come to the end of the dice game. We are now going to go ahead and put this guy at the top of the initiative order. And like I said, I believe that what happens is he gets to go first. But the good news is we took 5 of those 6 rats off of the table. We are now sharing this, and this guy's going to get to take a swing at Maginos, but we're very far from triggering Brody. We're not that cheese poor coming out of this room. 4 cheese isn't great, but it could have been worse by a long shot. And we're probably going to be able to kill this guy and get out of here pretty darn quick without cheesing the wheel. And we have been able to avoid Brody, which is pretty wonderful. But this guy does get to go first. He's going to go ahead and take a swing at Maginos. And basically, when we start gambling with no cheese, he's kind of like, "What's up?" And maybe he pushes Maginos, and he's like, "Hey, give me my cheese. You owe me cheese." And then Maginos' disguise slips a little bit, and even a rat warrior is smart enough to realize that mice are not rats. And he takes a swing at Maginos. He does not gain any hits. He does cheese the wheel, but Maginos is unharmed by the attack. And then we come to Maginos, who, because he's sharing the space with the rat warrior, can actually use his staff for a melee weapon. So he's going to go ahead and do that and hit once, but that attack is blocked. Filch then is going to try to stabby stab. He is not actually, no, he's going to try to shoot him with a bow because he is not above this guy in initiative. So he's going to do that and roll nothing but swords. So Filch is done. I'm not going to use energy rush or anything like that. So we'll just have Colin swing away. Colin just gains a cheese. He's busy eating his winnings. And so we come to Tilda, who's our last chance to get this guy before he swings away. She gains 2 cheese and 1 hit. Let's see if he blocks it. He does very handily. So this guy comes around and takes another swing at Maginos, hitting once. Maginos does manage to block it, so Maginos is going to take a swing back and hit him twice. And as a result, that is blocked actually, as an interesting turn of events there. Filch will try to shoot him once again and gain 3 cheese. Now that's interesting because not only does that give him up to 4 cheese, but he now has the Cheese Master achievement. Remember that the way you get Cheese Master is you roll 3 cheese on a single attack or defense. And one thing we do is we move the chapter end marker up 1 spot, and from now on for the rest of the chapter, each time the Cheese Master rolls 1 or more cheese when defending, Every mouse gets a cheese, as long as they're not captured. That's pretty cool. So we go ahead and move the page up to 7. That's really interesting. Okay. But it also means that I did not hit this guy, so Colin is going to come around. As lucky as I got in that dice game at the end of the game, I'm just rolling nothing but cheese here and no hits. All right, so that guy did cheese the wheel. We are actually, after all of that, we're closer to the surge than I thought we would be, but that rat is dead. Colin having killed him. And yeah, Colin's done with his turn. So now we've got Tilda. I'm trying to remember if there are any special searches in this room or not. I don't think that there are. There's just the dice game and the special surge. And again, the story that you get when you play the dice, once all the rats are removed or defeated in battle afterwards, you read the following, which is basically the rats reveal that Captain Verst, their commander, has been ordering them to look for a mystical tome in the castle that Vanestra fears has the capacity to undo her plans. So they are tasked with finding it and keeping it out of the hands of the mice. So that's, of course, a very important piece of information the mice want to have, and they are therefore going to be very proud to, or happy to know that they have a goal now all of a sudden. So they were coming in here saying, what the hell do we do? Now they know, hey, we've got an objective. We've got a way to come after the queen here. And that is now our one piece of information. We also move the chapter end track up 1. So we actually have a lot of time here. We're still on page 1, and we can go all the way to 8. So time is all of a sudden a real luxury here in this chapter. And we're able to get out of here without facing Brody. But we're on Tilda's turn. I'm not super afraid of a surge here before we leave. And Maginos has a Whisker Froth, but he doesn't have a really good item. I'm thinking I might go ahead and tarry here. Rather than having Tilda move us on and get us right back into a fight, I might just put one more cheese on the wheel and risk that in order to get a round of 4 searches. Especially now that I have 11 cheese to play with, meaning Filch, if he succeeds, has plenty to use his find ability. So I'm going to go ahead and risk that, and I'm just going to move her onto the flip space, which she can't fail to get to, and have her search, not finding anything. Maginos will also move over there and search and find something. Heroic Sacrifice card, and this is basically if a fellow mouse is captured, you ignore the wounds that that mouse just received, and you are captured instead of that mouse. You also, because of your heroic action, remove all cheese from the minion wheel. So when somebody else is captured, if you have this card, you can choose to be captured instead. They're not captured, they're not wounded by the hit, and in fact you clear the cheese wheel, which could potentially be important. But I'm not too worried about the cheese wheel now that we've gotten past Brody and we have all the time in the world. I don't tend to get captured a whole lot, so not worrying about the time, just trading one capture for another, I'd rather just grab cheese, honestly. So he's going to discard that and take a cheese instead. Now, when Maginos started his turn, he was at the top of initiative, so we needed to add a piece of cheese to the cheese wheel, which was, of course, the gamble we were running here. But so far, it's netted us a cheese, and we got a couple of searches we can also roll. Filch is unsuccessful, and Colin is unsuccessful. So we added cheese to the wheel, and all it netted us was 1 cheese for Maginos. So that gamble did not pay off, but it was still worth taking. All right, so then Tilda will move us on, and we will bop down to the next tile, and of course that will land us on the flip space over here. and we'll check our storybook and make sure there are no special rules for this tile before beginning. So it turns out there is a special rule for the dining hall tunnels, but it's not especially interesting. There is a special search for the entire tile, and that's pretty much it. So we're still going to be drawing an encounter card and proceeding as normal. Now the special search is rest spot, and what's interesting about this is the effect is basically you draw the card and you get to heal up, discard wounds and such, but it only works, and this is kind of a weird card because you draw this all the time in combat. I'm searching all the time in the middle of combat, as you've seen, but it requires, because the card is meant to indicate that you're like camping out and taking a rest. I think you add a cheese to the wheel in order to execute it because you're carrying, but you're able to heal up, so it's a free heal for the most part. And again, time's not really a big issue for us, but it could potentially trigger a surge or get you very close to one, so that's something to be aware of. But it does require that there are no minions on the map. So the nice thing about this is it's available on the entire tile, and with special searches, it's very important to note this throughout the game. When there is a special search, you don't have to take the special search, even if you're on the space. It's an option for you. So you choose whether or not you want to grab the rest spot with a search. So, if you're wounded and you have somebody who can search after the fight, at that point you could opt to take it. But if you're searching in the middle of combat and this isn't going to do you any good, you can opt to just draw a card or use the find ability instead. So before we press on with this chapter, I wanted to just really quickly bounce back to the previous room, just to kind of, because the scenario does kind of bifurcate here. You can have two different encounters in this room. So I want to make sure that people understand how it works. Again, this tile is incorrectly marked, so we're coming in from this space right here. And because we had the disguises picked up in the previous room, we were able to roll into the dice game. So that is what prompted us to put the 6 rat warriors here and all the mice here. If, again, you roll into this room and you don't have the disguises, whether that is because you opted to take the the dinner fork instead, or just because you didn't find anything, or you didn't opt to take any of the special searches, or apparently if you have the disguises, I think you can choose not to spend them on the dice game. And so just because you chose to get the disguises doesn't mean you have to use them to prompt the dice game, as far as I read the rules. Remember, the disguises have a use unto themselves, independent of how they're especially used in this room. But basically, if you roll into this room and you do not, for whatever reason, trigger the encounter with the dice game because you've used the disguises, then what you're going to do is you're going to prompt, again, because of the special setup in the rules, you're going to face an encounter like this. And even though in the dice game, when we walk in here, we kind of go out of initiative and play the dice game, and then we start a new initiative, and it's programmed for the rats to go first, etc., etc. In this particular case, it's a special setup, so you would add these rats to the initiative, and then you would shuffle your initiative, and you would start from scratch just like you normally would with any encounter. So it's if you come in here without the disguises, it's just like any other encounter, and there's really nothing to really worry about. It's just a little bit unclear sometimes, or doubt-inducing in the instructions, the way it's put in there, just because they kind of tackle both ways that the room might go, and they bounce back and forth and everything. So I just wanted to clarify for anybody looking at this, if you don't do the disguises, it's a standard room. The only thing to really worry about then is just that you are facing 5 rats, and the encounter is Brody. Now, we walked into this room with only 1 cheese. You might think, oh, well, you could take out 5 rats and not worry too much. But of course, as you saw, with just that 1 rat, he put 2 cheese on the wheel before I was able to take him out. So you certainly would be running a big risk attacking 5 rats and hoping to not get too much cheese on the wheel, and at which point you've got to deal with Brody. So that was the rationale for using the disguises. Again, that dice game can go south on you real fast, so it's not necessarily wonderful in the event that the dice game does go poorly for you. Now, you're not facing elite rats, but they're not so substantially worse than the regular rats that it's a big boon to be facing regular rats instead. And you would have potentially, I mean, most often you're going to have 4, 5, or 6 of those rats to deal with, unless you get lucky in that dice game. So it's something to bear in mind that this is not a simple encounter. It is 5 on 4, but you have Brody coming. So if you can get into that dice game and hope to get lucky, it's a good idea most of the time. It's just a little bit chancy. But then again, so is this. For instance, one of the big drawbacks of that is that the rats get to go first. Well, in this encounter, Filch at most is going to take out 1, maybe 2 rats if he spends his cheese on Energy Surge. And then all the rats are going, because that's how the initiative shuffle went. So it's not like I'm facing massively better odds here than I was even in the worst case scenario with that dice game going south on me. So stuff to bear in mind. But let's go ahead and clear this out and get back to the game that we're running here. All right, so here we are. And again, what we want to do at this point is clear our search markers. Let's clear the chat, and let's go ahead and draw our encounter card. Okay, so we are still on page 1, which means we have greedy roaches to deal with, which isn't wonderful because we're also very close to a surge, and the surge is not going to be particularly nice because it is a centipede. On top of that, it's a mousetraps encounter. So this is a relatively nasty card to draw in this particular room because we want to get over here, and those mousetraps are going to get in the way of us doing that. Again, the room tiles being the way they are, you could argue a figure can span those spaces so that those squares are adjacent. But especially with the mousetrap here, if you're trying to do that in order to get around the mousetrap, it looks to me like that mushroom is blocking your ability to step here to here, and you really have to go through that square in order to do it. So if you're trying to go from there to avoid the mousetrap, I mean, especially the way this room is set up, it really looks like that mousetrap is designed to cut off your access to that side of the tile from the other side and vice versa. So it really seems to me like you're not supposed to be able to move from here to here without worrying about that mousetrap. So that's how I'm going to play it. And I'm going to go ahead and drop these on the map. And then we'll get going and see how we fare against these darn roaches. All right, so let's go ahead and add our greedy roaches to the initiative. And we'll get 5 of them placed on the map. Now they're spread out among the 3, so I need to have at least 1 in each of these, but then I can kind of choose which ones I want to do. And I'm thinking I'll try to probably move this way, so I'll try to throw the enemies far away from me as I possibly can. And yeah, at that point we will shuffle initiative and get going. And it looks like Tilda's going first, but she is the only one who's going to get to go before the roaches do. And she doesn't have a lot going for her right now. She can take up a couple of wounds, but if I get close enough to these guys to fight them, these guys are potentially going in here, and these guys are definitely going to be attacking her. So she could be facing anywhere from 1 to 4 attacks if she comes in here. If she doesn't, these guys still could get over here and attack, but at least it's distributed around the party. Problem is, I don't want these guys eating my cheese, and I don't have a lot of options to get away from them without dealing with the mousetrap first. So I'm not really sure what I want to do. I might be looking at possibly taking Filch's bow, but if you recall, Filch's bow requires Archer or Scamp, so she can't use it. Maginos' staff requires a Mystic. So I have... Oh, here we go. Colin has the throwing daggers. He kept those earlier in the game. I think I kept that rather than a piece of cheese because I knew that later in the game I was going to have ranged attacks be a thing. Since she's going first, rather than move close and tempt fate with a lot of these guys, I think what I'm going to do is hope that if I stay back, some of these guys roll 1s and 2s for movement and I don't face as many attacks. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to fire off a ranged attack. Given that I'm not moving closer to anybody, I might actually go after this guy first and try to move the whole party this way in the event of a kill, so that these guys are going to circle around and kind of stay far away from me. So what she can do is she can trade with Colin and take those throwing daggers. That's a free action. She can equip them as a free action. Now, unfortunately, that does require her to put away the warding staff, which is going to lower her defense. But she's rolling 2 defense, and other than Colin, that doesn't make her any worse than anybody else, and it does give her a shot at killing a roach. So I think I'm going to roll those dice there. So she's going to make 2 die ranged attack in virtue of having 2 battle and the throwing daggers being not very helpful in adding to that. And all she gets for her trouble is a cheese, unfortunately. And so that didn't work out. Let's see what the roaches do in response. This guy can move only 1 space. Lucky so far. Only 1 space. Again, lucky so far. 2 spaces. So he will then attack Tilda and hit twice. And Tilda now is only rolling 2 defense. She only blocks 1, so she loses a cheese, which goes onto the wheel. And we're real close to a surge. This guy can move 2, 1, 2, and this guy can move 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. He now is going to attack Maginos and hit once, but Maginos is rolling only 1 defense die. He does block it, so we don't trigger a surge, which is good news, at least so far. It's now Maginos' turn. And let's see what we're looking at here. I've got 12 cheese in the party. Everybody here has already learned 2 abilities. It might be a little bit cavalier in terms of spending cheese, but this is a lot of roaches, and I'm going to be triggering a surge here pretty quick. So what I'm considering right now is maybe I level up with him and grab Chain Lightning, because that would allow me to attack 3 of these guys for 3 dice each at the cost of 3 cheese. But that means I would be spending 9 of my 12 cheese in order to get 3 attacks, as opposed to spending maybe 1 cheese to get an even better, to get a single attack at that same level. And they're all still going to be rolling that 1 defense die, so there's still a pretty good chance they're going to trigger a surge anyway. So I think I'm going to hang on to my cheese. I think I'm going to need it later. Getting Chain Lightning is good, but well, yeah, I think I'm basically assuming I'm going to be triggering this surge here in this room. So I'm not going to be playing this in a way that's going to make it very likely for me to get out of that. So I'm just going to spend 1 cheese. And I don't mind if he's out of cheese, because I'd almost rather take wounds than trigger a surge at this point. But he's going to spend that 1 cheese on Mystic Bolt, and he's just going to attack, I think, this guy right here. And then we're going to move this way and see if we can get away from these roaches over here a little bit. All right, so let's see how this attack goes. He's firing 3 because of Mystic Bolt. He's hitting only once. It is not, however, blocked, so that roach is killed. He can now move, but he can only move 3 spaces, but I'm going to go ahead and move 1, 2, 3 if the mousetrap cooperates. So I roll 1 die, and I did not, unfortunately, roll a star, which means he is knocked down. The good news is the mousetrap is removed. And the somewhat good news, on this stage anyway, is that Maginos also gains a piece of cheese. But it also means he didn't get very far away from those roaches. So my party is going to be aggressive and offensive rather than trying to get away from them, because Maginos, unfortunately, didn't get very far. So Colin, I think what Colin's going to do is he's just going to stay where he is, being the most defensive guy in the party right now. And I think he's going to swing away and try to kill one of these roaches. He hits only once. It's not blocked, so the roach is killed, but he cheesed the wheel, which means we have triggered that surge that I was trying to avoid. We go up a page. But more importantly, we have now brought in a centipede, which is going to show up right next to Maginos over here. We'll add that in there, put him down here. And yeah, he is not who I want to be attacking Maginos right now. And he's going to be hard to kill. And he's going right after Filch. And Colin has spent his turn. So I think actually what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move Colin next to him and make him attack Colin, who is my best defender right now, rather than have him attack Maginos later. Do I want to do that? Actually, no. What I'm going to do, actually, yeah, because he's going to go before Tilda goes. So I need to interpose here. The other option would be to have Colin spend a cheese on Give Order and maybe let Filch get an extra attack. But I think I'd rather just try to keep Maginos alive instead. So it's now Filch's turn. He is above the centipede in initiative, so if he attacks him with the dagger, the centipede's only rolling 1 defense die, which is very nice. But there's no chance of killing him unless I spend Energy Rush. However, with no cheese on the wheel right now, I'm not really that worried about the greedy roaches anymore, because again, time's not a factor for me. So I'm thinking I might want to just try to do what I can against that centipede. So he's going to attack for 2 with his dagger. Hit only once. The centipede is only rolling 1 defense die, and he blocks it. So that did not work out for me. And it is now the centipede's turn. He will attack the closest, who's highest in initiative. That's Colin for 3. Hitting twice. Colin, with the coin shield and the breastplate, is rolling 3 defense. He blocks 1 and therefore takes a wound. And because he was hit, he is also stunned, which is not good. And that is the centipede's turn. He doesn't move. It's now Tilda's turn, and I think she's going to... Gosh. She could go over there and try to wall up the centipede. Or she could attack the roaches. But the roaches are not going to hurt me. They're just going to add cheese to the wheel, and I don't really care because our encounter card has gone away at this point. So all a Surge will do on this tile is advance the page, and I'm not really worried about it. So I'm going to have her move down and attack the centipede, which was a good idea because she hit for 3, and he's only rolling 2 defense. He blocks. He adds 1 to the cheese wheel, but he only blocks 1 of the 3 hits. So he's now taken 2 wounds, and he's inching closer to death. It's now the roach's turn. Now the downside is Maginos is still, oh, I should have thought about, actually, yeah. Well, before I end Tilda's turn, I can have her trade some cheese over to Maginos, and I'm definitely going to do that. She's going to give him 2 cheese. And that's basically because he's only rolling 1 defense die. I don't want him to take wounds instead of cheese right now. So the roaches then, this guy can move into Maginos' space and then attack. He misses. This guy can move next to Maginos and attack and hit twice. Maginos gains a cheese, which is then eaten and goes on the cheese wheel, along with losing another cheese from his stash, meaning he loses 1 cheese and the cheese wheel goes up 2, but I don't really care about the cheese wheel right now all that much. This guy also is going to be able to attack Maginos, hitting once and not getting blocked, so we had another piece of cheese to the wheel, him losing that there. Okay. It's now Maginos' turn, so he has to spend his move standing up. And there's really no reason not to do that, so he's going to go ahead and get up. And then I think he's going to use his staff on that roach to try to hit it with a melee attack. Hitting twice, so that is a dead roach. Did not cheese the wheel. Greedy bugger. All right. It is Colin's turn. So this is the first time this has come up. We have Colin being stunned here, actually. And let's go ahead and take a quick look at what are the rules for stun. So the rules here state that when a mouse becomes stunned or webbed, you put the marker on their initiative card or their character card, whichever one works for you. A stunned mouse can move normally, but the only action it can take is a recover action. Remember, you have move and then you have action, which again in D&D terms is a standard action, right? So basically you spend your act, your attack or your special ability if it requires an attack, an action, and so forth. You can't search, you're not going to be able to explore, all of those things. You basically spend your action shrugging off the effect. You can still move, but it's going to more or less eat up your turn. On top of that, a webbed mouse, just while we're here, cannot move or use the scurry actions until it uses a recover action to remove the webbed marker. So if you are webbed, by contrast, you're able to attack, but you can't move until you use your action to clear the webbing. That's pretty much how those work. So Colin is going to have to spend his action to get rid of stun, which he does. He can move, but there's really no reason to. He cannot attack, but because he hasn't moved, he can spend a cheese to give someone else an attack action. And I think I'm going to give that to Filch to try to stab the centipede. Again, he's rolling 2 versus the centipede's 1, as opposed to Tilda is rolling 3 versus 2. So I'm going to let Filch take another attack, and he's going to roll his 2 melee dice, and again, he's going to whiff completely. Good thought that didn't pay off. It's now Filch's turn. He's going to do the same thing, trying again, hitting once, and it's blocked. So Filch is proving to be relatively useless. This guy is going to attack Colin again, hitting 3 times versus Colin's 3 defense. Colin blocks only 1, which means Colin has been captured. That is very bad for a couple of reasons. One, obviously we don't have him in the fight. 2, he had his coin shield equipped, which means he now loses it. The one good news is he's not going to be stunned when he comes back. I'm just going to move him off to the side here so we can still see him. So when he comes back, assuming we're not TPK'd here, when he comes back he is going to be at full strength, but he has unfortunately lost that coin shield, which is quite a blow because that extra defense dice, even though it didn't help him here, it would be nice to have going forward. So that is unfortunate. But that is the cave centipede's turn. It's now Tilda's turn, and I think she's pissed off. She better wallop this guy good. And she does in fact kill him and exact her revenge, which is a good thing. So that is Tilda. And now it is the greedy roaches. They cannot fail to move on to Maginos' space. And they will go ahead and each attack him. First one gets 2 hits, none of which are blocked. Maginos only has 1 cheese. So he loses a cheese, which goes on the wheel. We're back up to 5. And he takes a wound. So this second roach has the potential of being able to capture Maginos. He cheeses the wheel, triggering a surge. But again, because we are having a surge from an encounter card, when you trigger the surge, the encounter card is discarded. So the surge does nothing but move our page up. And there is 1 hit, which Maginos fails to block. So he does take a wound. He's not captured, but he is hurt. But he did gain back 1 cheese, which kind of counts as a hit point at this point. It's Maginos' turn. He doesn't really need to be running away, but he's going to go ahead and try to smush one of these guys. He gets 1 hit, not blocked, so he does kill another one. And Colin's turn comes around, it comes and goes. Filch will, I guess, just try to shoot this guy with a bow. He gains a cheese. Now remember, Filch is the cheese master, but the benefit of cheese master is only when you're rolling for defense. So that is just a single cheese for him. And he hits once, and it's blocked. So we come now to Tilda, who I think is going to want to grab some cheese from Filch and make sure Maginos is alive and stuff. So that's what she's going to do. She's going to trade with Filch. And I'm going to have her grab 3 cheese. She's going to have to spend 2 of it. But that allows her to heal Maginos. Now the alternative would be try to smush this guy, but if she failed to smush that guy, then Maginos would get attacked and potentially captured. But actually, let me think. I'm going to redo that. I'm going to take that back. What I think I want her to do is just move on to that space and then try to smash that guy. I forgot to equip her morning stuff. Obviously, when I moved her over here, that's what she was doing. She would have been able to do it. I just didn't bother with the bookkeeping there. So she's got her staff equipped. She's just going to try to smush this roach. And all she got was a cheese, unfortunately. But the good news is she's rolling 3 defense dice, has a bunch of cheese in her inventory, and that roach is going to be attacking her now because she's higher than Maginos in the initiative. So that's why I wasn't worried too much about the roach living. But it comes now to the roach's turn. He's now attacking Tilda, hitting her twice. She blocks 1, rolls a cheese, so she's not hurt, but that 1 cheese does go on the wheel for the greedy roach. It's now Maginos' turn. And I think he's just going to search, actually, believe it or not. And we're going to see what he finds in here. He's got the intense cowering, which I suppose I will hang on to. It's kind of a get out of an attack free card. Now, it's not going to be that useful in... It might be useful here in the crystal chambers. It's not going to be very useful in the alchemist chamber, so I need to bear that in mind. I'm not going to need it on this tile. I might or might not need it on the other tile, but it's not going to be very useful on the alchemist chamber. Presumably I'm going to be healed by the time I get there. And they're all ranged attackers. The main benefit of intense cowering is obviously they're not attacking you, but if they can attack somebody else, they still will. So if you're dealing with a bunch of ranged attackers, they're going to be able to see a bunch of mice. So, like, if you're facing two archers and Maginos is first in the initiative, he plays intense cowering versus the first one, so they attack somebody else. But then the second guy targets Maginos, so it did nothing. So I'm actually thinking I might want to just discard this for cheese in this situation. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to have to spend cheese to heal those wounds anyway. Colin, we skip, and now Filch is going to try to shoot that roach again, hopefully get some cheese in the process. Okay, that is a guaranteed kill of the roach. He rolled 1 cheese, and the kill of the roach is going to get him 1 cheese. So he's definitely gaining 2. The only question, and that's because this counts as 2 hits, and this guy's rolling 1 defense. The only question is, did he cheese the wheel? He did not. So that roach is dead. The roaches are removed. And again, he's the last one in initiative. So we come back to Tilda. And Tilda can now take a look at the cheese situation. And everybody's got some. So she's just going to spend 2 of her cheese to heal Maginos. Maginos has searched, but he's going to wait and do nothing else because there's really nothing else for him to do. And then Colin comes back on his turn because it's now his turn in initiative, and we're out of combat. There's no enemies on the initiative track. Now again, he can come back in any space that is in or adjacent to any of the other mice. So I'll just plunk him down here. He comes back unwounded and with no conditions, but he did lose that coin shield because it's not starting gear, and he did have it equipped as opposed to hidden in his pack. So that was a blow. This was not a good tile for me, and in general I have not gotten any gear out of this entire chapter so far. In fact, I've got worse gear than I did coming in. But we are advancing the story, so we'll see how this goes. But it takes Colin's entire turn to return. It's then Filch's turn. So, once again, we come to this situation where I don't have much cheese on the wheel. If I spend his turn searching, I can get a search from him, from Tilda, and Colin, come back to him, and he can move us on. And all it will cost me is 1 cheese on the wheel. Because Colin lost gear, and because Maginos doesn't have good gear, he's got gear, but it's not wonderful. I think I am going to do that. So Filch will search, find something, and I think I am going to spend that cheese to use the find ability to make this a good search. And okay. Notice, remember, there is a special search here for the rest spot, and it's just fortuitous that this came up purely by chance. But it says play immediately if you pick it. If there are no minions on the board, you can remove all wound markers from each mouse and place 1 cheese on the minion wheel. So for the cost of a cheese on the wheel, everybody's fully healed. But everybody's already fully healed, so that really doesn't help me much. Another item is the toothpick. When defending against a melee attack, if any cheese is rolled, this mouse may immediately inflict 1 unblockable wound on the attacking minion for each cheese rolled. So it's a nice defensive weapon. The downside is it requires 2 hands, and it only works against a melee attack, and I know that last tile is mostly ranged. The slicing dagger says that when attacking with this dagger, for each cheese rolled, choose a fellow mouse, and that mouse also receives 1 cheese. So when you're attacking with that dagger, you double your cheese production, but that's not, I mean, you're rolling, for Filch or somebody, you're rolling two dice, so big whoop. So none of these are blowing me away. The toothpick's pretty nice in some situations. In this situation, where I know I have a lot of range coming up, I'm not super enamored of it. The rest spot, however, does nothing for me. I already have a dagger. So I think what I'll do is take the toothpick just in case it helps me on the next tile. And that might be useful for either him or Colin. Actually, Maginos could use it too. So I have ways to use it. But none of those were great. But find did allow me to avoid anything bad in case it had come up. So there's that as well. Go away. Oh, go away. Okay. So Tilda is going to search as well. She finds something. The Fickle Amulet. And this says that when the mouse wearing this accessory is attacked by a minion, you may force that minion to re-roll any cheese that it rolled. The minion must keep the second result. So if you're trying to avoid a surge, that can be helpful. So I think she's going to hang on to that. It's not super great, but it is better than a piece of cheese, I think. So she'll go ahead and grab that and put that on. And then Maginos again can't do anything. Colin will search and not find anything, and then Filch will move us on. So we'll come here, we'll bounce over to the next tile. We will clear our search markers. And now that we're here, we'll go ahead and check the storybook and see if there's any special rules. Guess what? There are. So the special rules for the crystal tunnels apply to the entire tile, and they're both a special rule and a story moment. Story moment, of course, is text that you'll read, but there is a it's only going to come up actually if something happens. And basically this says that if you walk into the room in initiative order, each player rolls a number of action dice equal to the mouse's current lore. Any mouse that rolls one or more stars has a vision and becomes stunned. You're then going to place a stun marker on their initiative card. So the bad news is you're potentially starting this tile stunned. You are filling the entry space, so anybody who's in the room with you is far away, and therefore, unless they're ranged, can't attack you on that first round, so it's not the worst thing in the world. But everybody's going to start stunned on that first tile if they roll a star. That's the only mechanical effect. The other effect is that as long as one person gets a star, they have a vision, which reveals a bit of information. And I'll just tell you this right now, because we're going to be rolling like 7 or 8 dice. The odds of not getting a star are pretty low. I'll go ahead and assume that we're going to get one. And basically the idea is that the vision is of the elf city of Nextor, which is next door to the kingdom. But Nextor is in peril. Golden Wall is besieged by Vanestra. She's got hordes of invaders and a big, ugly, steam-belching iron beast that is fighting alongside her. So we have learned that she has plans to attack the neighboring elves using a big mechanical monstrosity. And of course, when you get that, that's one of the other clues that you need to complete the chapter. Now we're already fine there in terms of the piece of information because we did play the dice game, and as such we have the one clue, and actually the final tile, once you clear it, which you have to win anyway, gives you another clue, and you only need 2 of the 3. So we don't necessarily need this. So it's actually better for us right now if nobody has this vision, because nobody would then be stunned. But as long as one person does, we have another piece of info. And that's a way to get the info if you do not play the dice game. Now, remember, this is not guaranteed. So if you don't play the dice game, you're rolling the dice, as it were, on getting this vision, although it's pretty likely. Okay, so here we are, and let's just go through. It says in initiative order, so we'll start with Tilda. She's going to roll 2 dice. She gets a star, so she has a vision and is therefore stunned. And then we'll go to Maginos. He's rolling 3. Does not have a vision. That's interesting. Colin has 2. No vision. And Filch only rolls 1. He has a vision. So go figure that. He is also stunned. Okay? So Tilda and Filch each had a vision of this attack. That counts as a clue. They're stunned. And now we draw our encounter card to see what we're facing. And again, we get a mouse trap. So we'll go ahead and grab that guy and drop that down here. And we are on page 3, so we have 3 elite rats, which is interesting because they are ranged. And in keeping with how things usually go, I grabbed that one item thinking it would be useful against melee opponents on this tile, and lo and behold, that's not what we're facing. But that is what it is. Okay, so we'll shuffle the initiative and we'll get going. Filch begins things by shrugging off his stun condition, spending his action there. And this crystal, I think, bars vision from this square here. So if this guy is moving from here to here, he's going to be able to face everybody. These guys, if they can't fire until they get to here. So there's really no reason not to move up to this space here and get closer to the bad guys. So we'll go ahead and do that. Tilda similarly is going to shrug off her condition with her action and then move forward. Maginos once again has some potential options here, but we have 10 cheese in the party right now, so I don't think I'm going to level up right now. I think I'm going to save the cheese. I don't think I'm going to have him rush forward and attack these guys. I think I'm going to let them come to me a little bit, because these guys have to roll a 3 before they can do anything to anybody. So I think I'm going to have him hold back. And just search. To no avail. Okay, it is the Elite Rat's turn. This guy can move 3 spaces, so he can go, and he will keep moving until he can see an enemy to shoot at. He will then fire at Filch, rolling 3 dice looking for bows, getting 1 bow and cheesing the wheel 1 time. Filch rolls his 2 defense. He gains cheese on defense. So the interesting thing is here, he did take a wound from that attack, but he gets a cheese. And because he's the cheese master, each active mouse gains 1 cheese. Now active, of course, is going to be referencing the fact that, had that happened on the previous tile while Colin was captured, for instance, Colin would not have gained cheese. But I'll trade a wound for 4 cheese at this point. That's not too bad. Now this guy, of course, does roll a 3, so he is also going to be able to fire. Now he's going to fire at Tilda because she's the next closest that hasn't been attacked. And that's no hits at all. And this guy can roll his movement and also get a 3. Go figure. And now he is going to fire at Maginos. And he cheeses the wheel but does not hit. So, that's the way it goes. These guys tend to cheese the wheel a little bit more because they are rolling more dice, but they don't hit any harder because they are rolling for bows, which don't show up as often. So it is now Maginos' turn. No, Maginos took a turn, and then it was their turn. So it's now Colin's turn. And I think Colin is not going to deal with the mousetrap just yet. I think Colin is going to instead move forward and attack. Because he's rolling 3 melee dice. He gains a cheese. And he hits twice. But both are blocked, unfortunately. Now Filch, I think, is going to try to dagger this guy while he can, reducing his defense down to 1 die. And of course he rolls bows. Tilda will attack that same guy. Go away. Why do you keep doing that? Okay. Tilda is going to attack for 3. 3 hits. That is a dead rat. He does, however, cheese the wheel. Wow, I'm very fortunate on this tile, and the last one on top of that. My luck went south after the dice game, which, granted, did go very well for me. Do I want Tilda to move? Is an interesting question. I don't think so. The reason I might is the Rottweilers are just going to stay there shooting at me. So if she stays here, they're going to shoot at Filch first and then her. If she moves forward, they're both going to shoot at her. She is rolling more defense dice than Filch, but Concentrating damage on one mouse is generally risky, and she is the healer. Plus, if she goes onto that mouse trap and doesn't roll a star, she's going to take a wound. She'd be potentially going into that with a wound and only 2 hit points remaining, therefore. So I don't think I want to risk my healer doing that. So I'm just going to end her turn where she is and see what these guys do. First is against Filch. Cheeses the wheel, but does not hit. The next is against Tilda, and that is 3 hits. So she'd better roll a bow, otherwise she's captured. Or roll a shield. She rolls 1 shield. She's got 2 wounds. And yeah, my fortune is not with me the last little while here, but we will press on. Maginos is going to get angry. He's going to spend a cheese, and he's going to fire Mystic Bolt at one of these rats, firing 3 dice, rolling nothing but swords. Colin. Ooh. Okay, Tilda is not going to get a chance to go before the rats because they moved up in initiative. So he and Filch need to try to kill these guys, otherwise Tilda is going to get shot at. But I don't want to risk moving on to that mousetrap at the same time, potentially losing my turn and my chance to attack and getting a wound, while then concentrating on the damage on Colin. So I think what I'm going to do instead is spend a cheese to give Filch a shot with his bow. Now Filch hit for 2, and it was not blocked, which means that rat is killed. The problem with this is, even though Filch takes cheese off the wheel, that cheese goes onto the wheel first. So we've triggered the surge on our encounter card, which is a spider. Good God. Okay. Alright, so here's the resolution of that. The surge triggers first. So we go back down to the 0 on the cheese wheel. We go up a page. We're all the way up to 4 already. We did go up to 9 when we got that clue, by the way. So we started stunned, but we went up a page because we got the clue. Filch will get his cheese, but he's not taking it off the wheel. And we are now also adding a spider to the initiative. He is going to be right next to Maginos, and he gets to go immediately because he's next in initiative in virtue of being added to the bottom. So this is just not going well at all. All right, so he's going to attack for 2 against Maginos. The good news is he can't kill the guy. He cheeses the wheel and hits once. Maginos has only 1 defense die. Doesn't block it, so he takes a poison wound. It's now Filch's turn. And what do I want to do? I think Filch is going to try to shoot that rat and take cheese off the wheel if he can. All he does is gain 2 cheese. And it's now the rat's turn, so he's going to shoot back at Filch and get 1 hit. Filch will roll his defense and not block anything, so he takes another wound. And the good news is he gains a cheese, and because he's the cheese master, so does everybody else. So it's ugly right now, but remembering that I can turn 2 cheese into 2 heals, getting 4 cheese for a single wound is not the worst thing in the world. That is the Elite Rat Warrior's turn. He moves up in the initiative, and he's now above Filch. It's Tilda's turn, and obviously she cannot do anything. She's got to start healing people. Otherwise, they're going to start dropping left and right. So she is going to spend 2 of her cheese to heal Filch for 1 and herself for 1. Try to stem the bleeding here a little bit. And then she's not going to move. Maginos now is going to fall back a space and pay a cheese to fire at, I think, the spider. Getting only 1 hit versus his 3 defense. Now he does take a wound despite cheesing the wheel a couple of times. Now remember, we've discarded the encounter card and we still have 5 pages. So it seems like we're crushing time here, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Alright, that was Maginos' turn. And Colin, I think, now is going to step here so that the spider's attacking him rather than Maginos or Filch, who are wounded. And he's going to swing away at the spider, gaining a cheese and hitting twice versus the spider's 3 defense. Cheeses the wheel again and blocks only 1, so he takes another wound. And the spiders only need 3, so he's close to death, but it is the spider's turn again. So the spider will attack and miss, but cheese the wheel. The rat warrior will then attack Filch, triggering yet another surge. And hitting once, which Filch blocks. It's now Filch's turn. He's going to try to, gosh, at this point he's going to try to shoot the spider. He was hoping to take cheese off the wheel firing at that guy, but no luck so far. Okay, he gains a cheese, and he hits for 2 versus the spider, who blocks only 1, so that is a dead spider, which nets Filch yet another cheese, which is good. It's Tilda's turn, and I think because we're only facing the 1 rat, I'm not as worried as I used to be. But I think Tilda is still going to, with Maginos way down in the initiative, I'm going to have Tilda spend her 2 cheese to heal herself and Filch, each for 1. And then when she has a chance, she'll heal Maginos. But it's now Maginos' turn. And I think what I will do is, yeah, I'll just try to shoot this guy. Actually, what kind of cheese level do I have? I have a lot of cheese here. I've got 16, 18 cheese now. Okay, yeah, he's going to spend 1 cheese and do his Mystic Bolt. And again, he's got a good chance of rolling cheese and doubling that up. He did get 2 hits, only one of which was blocked, so we had 1 to the wheel, but he did kill that guy. And then I think before I end his turn, I'm going to trade with, who's got a lot of cheese? Filch. He's going to trade with Filch. And grab himself 7 cheese for right now. And then he's going to spend 6 of that to level up and gain the Chain Lightning ability. Do I want Chain Lightning or do I want Mystic Blast? Mystic Blast only costs 2 cheese. Chain Lightning costs 3. But my thought is I might want to use this early in the next room, where I have a bunch of enemies in a couple of spaces. With Chain Lightning, I can throw it at a whole bunch of people. Mystic Blast, my options are fewer. Damage is about the same. I'm just going to take the Chain Lightning as the more flexible option. So he's leveled up. And then we come to Colin. Colin will now try to move past the Mousetrap. And, well, that's his movement, which lets him go 1, 2, 3. So he can't quite get to the flip space. But before we pass the Mousetrap, let's see whether he triggers it or not. He does. So he gets there. He takes a wound. He's stunned. And the Mousetrap goes away. Rats are gone. And then when we come back around to Filch, we add cheese to the wheel. Filch has not a lot to do, but search. So I think he's going to do that. Find something. I'm going to spend the cheese on find, because I have a bad feeling about my luck here. Okay. I think I messed that up. I think when I lost the coin shield from Colin, I should have discarded it rather than, yeah, I should have discarded it rather than putting it back into the deck, because it shouldn't be an option. I think you discard it. I don't think you shuffle it back into the deck when you lose it. So I'd love to take that coin shield back. That would be a fantastic item for Colin to have in the next room. But I don't think I'm allowed to get it back. So I think what I'm going to do is fudge this a little bit. I got the grape, I have Tail Link, and then I'll see what my other option is by drawing one more card. And it's They Know We're Here, which I can avoid as a treachery card. So I have the grape or Tail Link. The grape is good against roaches, which would have been nice on the last tile. But without the dinner fork, it's not going to be very useful in the next room. So I think I'll take Tail Link. I guess. Although, you have to have 2 mice in the same space. I might be better off just taking a cheese. I think I'll just take a cheese. Oh, I completely forgot about the toothpick. I keep doing that. Well, they were all facing ranged attacks anyway, so it didn't matter. Okay. Yeah. So he discards. He'll take Tail Link and then discard Tail Link, so it's not showing up here the right way because I messed that up. But the coin shield, I'm going to grab that out of the deck. I guess it's in the discard pile now, so I don't need to worry about it. But yeah, the coin shield shouldn't have been an option there. That's too bad. Okay. So the only question would be, do I want to divvy up cheese at all? And I think I do. I would like Filch to have the option of doing Energy Rush on the next tile. So I'm going to trade with Colin and steal a couple cheese from him. And then I definitely want to make sure Tilda's got some cheese to heal some people. So Tilda on her turn is going to trade with Colin as well. And I'm going to have her take 3 cheese. And then she's going to spend 1 to heal Maginos. Because her cure ability, major heal requires spending 2, but cure, you spend the amount of cheese that you are removing poison markers. She's only removing 1, so she spends 1. And then Maginos can search. No. Here's a question. Colin on his turn will have to spend his movement to stand up, which means he would only be able to get here by scurrying, which means he will not be able to move us on. So if anybody moves us on, it would have to be Maginos. Do I want to do that? The reason would be I don't want to put another cheese on the wheel before going into that final encounter. The reason not to would be I can heal Colin before going in there. I could get a couple more searches in. I'm just going to search and not find anything. Colin then will stand up, and he will also search and find something. Shriek bug, yay! Alright, so he's going to roll dice equal to his lore. He gets a 4. If it's 3 or less, you add 2 rat warriors. He got a 4, so we're not adding any rat warriors, but that was a useless search. Filch will hang out, but we added a cheese to the wheel. Tilda will search, or will she heal? How much cheese do I have? Yeah, I think that last room is pretty tough. I think I want to go in there fully healed, especially now that he lost that coin shield. So I am going to take stock of what I have equipment-wise. I'm going to give Colin the toothpick just in case he gets up. Actually, that's really not useful to anybody anymore. Could have helped Maginos against the spider, had I thought of it. I do have the Whisker Froth elixir, so it's not as important that I heal. But it's also not as important that I save cheese in case I need to heal. So I think I'm just going to play it safe. I'm going to have her spend her cheese to heal Colin. And then I'll have Maginos search. And I'll have Colin move us on. So as a result, I am one more healed as a result of staying that extra round. Filch. Yeah, the only search I got was a crap one, so I didn't gain anything from the extra searches. So I added a cheese to the wheel for the sake of being able to spend 2 cheese to heal Colin for 1. But you never know, I could have gotten a nice item for him, like the Ring of Cat Strength or something like that. So it was worth the gamble. Alright, so we go into the next tile, the last tile, and that is the Alchemist Chamber. We start on the flip space. And there are a whole bunch of special rules for this tile, so let's go ahead and take a look at the storybook after we clear our search markers in the chat, and away we go. Alright, the Alchemist Chamber. For starters, we have a special setup. We're going to begin with a named boss. It is a rat named Captain Verst, and he's going to have 2 elite rats with him up on the Alchemist table. So that is this table right here. We're also going to have 2 rat warriors up here. Now the thing to note about this, you might not be able to tell from this, but this table obviously is a special area, so any number of minions can be up here. You have red lines around it except through the chair. Now you can't go through the back of the chair, you have to go up the sides, so it's 3 and then 3 movement to get up there if you're walking. But if you get up there, you can obviously engage with melee, and the guys up here are ranged attackers. The bigger worry is up here you've got 2 other rats, and they are behind red with there's no chance of walking up there. So how do you get up there? If you don't have the dinner fork, you can't vault anybody up there. Now you might be able to take them out with ranged attacks, but you cannot attack them with melee even if you're next to them. So the other thing to bear in mind is you might need to find a way to get up there. Now you might get lucky and search and find the dinner fork or something like that, or the fishhook. But the more reliable way to get up there would be to search in one of the special search areas, and that is the table, the pile of books, the other pile of books, or the other pile of books. And the special search is any one scroll card. So you can search and you can find any scroll you like. That could be, and they helpfully pointed out, the teleport scroll, because that allows you to place mice wherever the heck you want. That's very often one of the first things I do in this tile because it lets me engage with these guys right away. there is a story moment here that will trigger if we successfully kill the Verse, the bad guy. There's also another special search area on the table giving you the Whisker Froth, although I already have it. Excuse me. And then the special surge is one elite rat on the Alchemist table. That's one reason why I wasn't super concerned about triggering surges here, and that's why I was tempting the cheese wheel there a little bit at the end. Adding one elite rat isn't the worst thing, and putting it up on the table where I'm trying to get to anyway is not the worst. The only other rule here is that if you kill Versed, all the elite rats that are left roll, and if they roll a star, they run away. The idea is they're cowardly and they tuck their tails between their legs and run away as soon as their leader is killed. So those are the special rules for this tile. Let's go ahead and put the minions down and get going. Alright, so we've got Captain Versed, who we're going to add to initiative and then plunk down here. We've got a couple of elite rats that are standing there with him, and we've got a couple of them up here on the table. That is the entirety of the enemy setup. We remember we have a special searches ×2 up here. We've got one on these books, we've got one on this book, and we've got one on this book. So we got a bunch of different places we can go to potentially get that. And we go ahead and shuffle initiative and see where we're going. Now, Colin did not have, I think I've done this a couple of times without giving Colin cheese, but that's my bad, so I'm only going to get it here. Colin is not first, and as such, he is gaining a cheese. The really, really bad news here, though, is Maginos is top of the initiative, which means he's going to get attacked first by the rats, and he's not rolling a lot of defense. So we'll just have to see how this goes, but yeah, they're going to go down the line firing, and Versed is going to get to go as well. And Versed is pretty nasty because if he rolls cheese when attacking, he gets to attack again. So he could potentially fire 2, 3, or 4 times. It's ugly sometimes. We'll just see how the dice fall. First rat is attacking Maginos. He is rolling 2 cheese onto the wheel, but no hits. Oops, I should not have advanced that because we have other rats. Now the next one is going to fire at Filch. He cheeses the wheel, which means we add a rat to the table, which I think means he's going to be able to attack this round too. And we are going to clear the wheel and move it up a page. So we don't have a whole lot of time left, despite all those pages that we added. We're already up to page 6. But he also got 1 hit versus Filch. We'll see his defense. He did block it. This guy is then going to attack Tilda, rolling 1 hit versus her 3 defense. She gains 2 cheese and a block. And then this guy is going to attack Colin, hitting twice. Colin blocks neither, so he is now up to 2 wounds already. That is really bad news. Now, we've got 1 more rat left, and I think he comes back around and attacks Maginos again for no hits. Okay, so Maginos got a little bit lucky there. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to use that fancy chain lightning ability that we got him. In order to do that, he's going to have to snag some cheese from Colin, but we got to get some of these enemies off the map. So he is going to trade with Colin, and he's going to grab, I think, 2 cheese. Leave Colin with 1. And he's then going to spend 3. Now he gets to choose 3 targets. I think you have to declare them first. I'm going to declare Versed, and then I'm going to declare the 2 rats on top of the bookshelf as my targets. Now the Chain Lightning ability says you may use this ability instead of performing the normal battle action. Choose up to a number of minions equal to the mouse's current lore, 3. Each minion figure chosen is attacked by this mouse with a ranged attack. That battle value of the attack is 3. Roll 3 action dice once to make the attack, and each minion defends separately. So I roll 1 attack, and it better go well against all 3 of those guys. So let's see how we do. Wouldn't you know it? So he spends 3 cheese to do absolutely nothing. Versed, well, I guess he will move at this point, because everybody's going to move before the rats go at least, and he's going to get attacked next anyway, so he'll just go ahead and move up here onto the search space for next time. No, he'll, how far can he move? He can move 3. 1, 2, 3. Get him a little closer to getting up there in case it's relevant. And then Versed is going to shoot at him. Versed rolls 3 ranged attack, just like the elites. He rolled no hits, and he did not roll a cheese, so he doesn't attack again. That was lucky. It's now Filch's turn. Filch is pissed off. Filch is going to attack. And I guess we're going to try to whittle these rats down, I suppose. Yeah, Filch is just going to fire with his bow. He's just going to hang back and shoot. And I guess we'll start with the guys up on the bookshelf. Doing no damage. He's going to spend 2 cheese for energy rush and try again. And all he does is get his cheese back. And I guess he will, before it's the end of his move, he can't fail to get up there, so he'll do that. Tilda, on her turn, she has no ranged attacks, but she can heal Colin, so I guess she's going to do that. And then she'll move up there. And then Colin, on his turn, ugh. Whew. Not a lot of good options. I think I'm going to have to try to get lucky here because this is going really badly for me. I'm draining my cheese for nothing. I'm going to hope for luck here. I'm going to roll a search and try to find a scroll because most of those scrolls are free actions to use. So I'm going to go ahead and roll my search. I did find something. So I can go into the deck and pick any scroll I want. Now, teleport's an obvious choice here because one at a time you put any mice anywhere you want, basically. But because of how the battle is going, I'm actually going to, I think, take the slow scroll. Because this says, choose a minion card on the initiative track. Figures from that initiative card cannot move or attack until the next time this scroll's user takes a turn. So in other words, I can grab that slow scroll, play it right now as a free action, which I'm going to do. And the result is I'm going to play it against the elite rats, and I'm just going to toggle these guys over here to say that they cannot go. They can't move or attack until Colin's turn comes around again. That is what I was hoping to be able to do, because that's going to save me 5 attacks right now. And now Maginos can go. Now the question is, do I want to risk Chain Lightning again? I think I'm just going to simply attack Versed at this point. I think I want to blitz Versed and see if I can take him out and then scatter the rats. So I am going to spend a cheese on Mystic Bolt to roll 3 versus Versed. He gains a cheese, which means he gains 2 cheese. He only hits once, and Versed is rolling 3 defense. Versed does take a wound. That was pretty nice. But he did cheese the wheel, which does bring us, remember, this is a special surge, so those rats keep coming. But Verst has 1 out of his 3 wounds so far, and Maginos actually gained a cheese in doing that, so that was nice. And I think because the rats aren't moving, I'm going to take that as a chance to have him move up onto the chair. I'm just trying to move them as a pack so that I can try to scatter the attacks amongst the party to spread out the damage a little bit. But either way, Verst is going to attack Maginos first. And he's rolling 3, so he hits once and gets to attack again. Maginos does not block. He gains a cheese and a wound. And Verst now gets to attack again. Now, the rule on attacking, I believe, is they attack the closest mouse that hasn't been attacked yet. So the first check is the closest mouse. So I think he attacks Maginos again. And that is 1 more cheese and 1 more hit, which is not blocked. So Maginos is up to 2 wounds now. And he gets to attack again. And he rolls all swords. Thank goodness. It's now Filch's turn. Filch is not loving Captain Verst, so he's going to fire away at that guy. And roll all swords. And he's going to once again spend his cheese to fire again. And roll all swords. Oh my god. Okay. Well, Filch can go 1, 2, 3, 4. And get there. Tilda is just going to, how much cheese do we have in the party? Well, Maginos has 3 cheese, so I guess the safe play would be to heal Maginos, especially because he's the first one to get attacked. That's very unfortunate. The other play would be have her move onto the chair and attack Verst, have Colin move onto the chair and attack Verst. They could both do that. And again, those rats are going to be coming next round, so I don't think either way Maginos is going to be doing too well unless I am able to take out Verst. So let's just try our luck here and see how Tilda can do. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to attack rather than heal. Because across yellow lines we are adjacent, so I can't attack Verst, so I'm going to roll 3 melee. 3 hits versus his 3 defense. He cheeses the wheel and blocks 2. So he's down to 2 wounds. And it's all up to Colin now. Again, he can't fail to move up there, I don't think. Yeah, he could fail to move up there, but he didn't. And he's going to attack for 3 hits. All right, Verst, don't roll 3 shields. He did not. Verst is Deadsville. All right. Verst has been taken off the map, and as a result, every rat in the encounter must roll a die, and if they roll a star, then they are removed. Hopefully this takes out at least 2 of these guys, because I'm banking on the fact that Maginos is probably going to be taken out, but I'd like to only have a few rats left for the other 3 to have to deal with. All right, Rat Warrior 27, roll a die. Star, you're gone. Rat Warrior 48, roll a die. Star, you're gone. Rat Warrior 16, roll a die. You're still here. 15, roll a die. You're still here. 56, roll a die. You're gone. So we were able to take out not only Verst, but 3 of the rats as a result of Colin, as it were, rolling those dice. The elite rat warriors now get to go, now that they have shaken off the effects of the slow scroll. But I'm not too scared anymore. That tile was looking nasty at first. It's no longer that scary. The elite rat warrior is going to shoot at Maginos. He's going to hit 2 cheese onto the wheel. And he hits Maginos for 1. Maginos has to roll a shield here or he is captured. He is captured. So he's going to go off the map. Now, he didn't have anything in his inventory that was worth worrying about. Otherwise, I would have taken it off. the Whisker Froth in his pack is not found. So when he comes back, he'll be at full health. He's captured, and that advances our page to 7. And the other rat is now going to attack Filch. Hitting once, and Filch will roll his defense. He blocks the hit. So Imaginos doesn't get to do anything. Filch will go ahead and fire at the rat up on the bookshelf, being our one ranged attack option. He rolls a cheese, and that's it. So he will... Yeah, I'm not too worried about it right now. He's just going to save his cheese for now. And Tilda will just step up here and attack that guy for 3, hitting 3 times. So that is a dead rat. He didn't cheese the wheel. And we come to Colin. And what are we doing for cheese? Colin has 1 cheese. He'll just go ahead and spend his cheese to give Filch another shot at that guy. If Filch kills him, then we've won the chapter. Filch just gains a cheese. And Colin can't really do much else except move closer to be the one that is getting shot at, but I don't think I want to do that. Yeah, it doesn't really matter if it's Filch or Colin, so he'll just stay where he is. Go away. Okay. So the rats come around again. He's going to fire now at the closest, who's highest in initiative. That would be Filch. He misses. So we come to Filch, who will fire back. And he gets a cheese. And he hits for 2 in virtue of his bow, killing that rat. So that rat's dead. Filch gains another cheese. As a result, it comes off the cheese wheel, which doesn't matter because we have now cleared the room. We got our story moment, and that is the end of the encounter, the end of the chapter. We have managed to win. So we got through the chapter. Let's go ahead and bop over to the story moment and check that out. And the story moment here says basically, it's long, but basically Verst kind of does his villain banter, his monologuing, comes over and says, ha ha, the beast, the iron monstrosity in the forge is nearly completed. Maginot says, aha, no wonder she's not going to kill Andon. She wants to cause a war. She wants to create anarchy here and then run away. That's her intention. And then they realized that, oh, there was a little pack on his belt, and inside was a little red ladybug, which is Maginos's familiar. Used to be a little baby dragon, now it's a ladybug, and his name is Meeps, and as a result he has access to the ability by that same name. Now, one thing that happened actually, as soon as I killed Verst, that story moment happens, and technically the page goes up yet again to 10, so I had even more time available than it looked like to complete that chapter. Okay. Now, I could have kept that guy around again and searched a little bit because there's very little chance he was going to be able to kill us, and I could have tried to milk it for a few more searches like I have in the past, but I wanted to cut this short, finish this chapter, and get out of here because it has not been going well for me ever since I left that dice game. That's a lesson to you kids out there. Gambling doesn't pay off. I guess we'll spin it that way. It's a public service. You're welcome. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. We have completed the chapter. We gained a whole lot of information and insight on what Vanestra was doing. It did cost us Colin's very nice coin shield. We didn't gain any gear, but we did get Maginos a very handy ability in the chain lightning skill, even though it didn't pay off for us here. And we have 8 cheese to play with, so we can actually get somebody else an ability as well before we move on. And I think what I'm going to do, I really like giving Maginos Meeps. I don't want to power him up too much, but Meeps is really, really good. I want to kind of show you guys that right now. It might be my favorite ability out there. It's really good. He only spends 1 cheese, and you place the Meeps marker under a minion, and as long as it's there, that minion rolls 1 less die until you come back to Maginos' turn, at which point Meeps comes back. So he sends his little ladybug to kind of buzz around the guy's head and distract him, and he's not able to defend himself as well. It's really cool because for the cost of 1 cheese, you lower the defense by 1. And it's not just for that 1 attack by you, but it's for anybody else. And you can do it at the beginning of your turn, you can do it at the end of your turn, you can do it whenever you want. And again, it works against bosses, it works against everybody else. So anytime you got anybody rolling a bunch of dice, you can just lower it, their defense dice. It's really nice, and it's pretty cheap. The only problem is if he uses that, he can't also use Mystic Bolt. So this is actually much more useful once I get an item like maybe the Scorching Wand for Maginos instead. So I think I'm not going to take that. To spread this around a little bit, he's the only one who's got 3. I don't want to get him 4 before everybody else has other ones. And instead, I'm going to give Colin an ability that I think is going to be potentially very useful for him. I'm going to let him take... actually, he's already taken Battle Leader. Inspire can be useful. You may use this ability before taking a turn with this mouse until the end of this round. After a mouse performs an action, that mouse may spend 1 cheese to perform 1 additional action. A mouse can only perform 1 additional action this way. So if you have a lot of cheese, and Colin is above his friends in initiative, then he can spend cheese to allow them to spend cheese to take additional actions. Can be useful, but it's dependent on where he is in initiative, in conjunction with Battle Leader, which can often be used to put him high in initiative. That can be good. But you have to have a lot of cheese to power this. It's really Battle Leader that I want to make sure that he has. Backslash can be nice. Feint can be nice, but only if he has more than 1 weapon equipped. I think what I might want to do is actually give Filch a very nice ability here. Yeah, I'll just do that. I will have Filch take the dodge ability. And this allows me to scamper away at the cost of 1 cheese in certain instances, which can be very handy. I'll go ahead and do that, and that will allow me to use up 6 of my 8 remaining cheese. And I'll clean up off screen, but basically we're going to clear away the excess items and move on to the next chapter. But we've won. That is chapter 3. We managed to get through it. We played a little dice. We had really horrible luck after that, but we still prevailed. We got all the way up to page 7. But because of all of our getting Miss Maggie, getting all the clues, and getting the Cheese Master, we were able to go all the way up to page 10. Had we not done a couple of those, time would have been a whole lot tighter, and I would have been a lot less confident in this final room. But the dice fell our way at the end, if barely, and we were able to emerge victorious. We've rescued Meeps. We've learned about Vanestra. And it is on to the next chapter as we seek to upset the evil sorceress's plans. I hope you found this fun and enjoyable. I will look for you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Fight true, all you brave mice out there, and I will catch you on the flip side. Take care.